Yes, good evening. Welcome to Patriotic Space. We are in conversation with Nkuli Mbundu. Let me just hand over to our co-host Nkunzi. Co-host, you can take over.
Thank you, host. Can you hear me? My clear, my audible?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. And we greet all the patriots and compatriots in the name of patriotism. This is the Patriotic Space, and thank you for tuning in and coming through so that we can just have this session and be able to engage Councillor Nkuli Mbundu. As we know, he's presently serving City of Johannesburg Metro Municipality, and he was serving as an MMC there for economic development in that metro. So we are in conversation with him, and we have a number of touch points, and that we'd like to just engage around and. Just to also have these discussions and leading up to the 2024 elections, national elections, and also just to look in terms of the metro itself, one of the biggest metros, as we know, and maybe just to have some insights as he is the man presently in serving the. So we just want. I think there's been a lot of talks and development, and certain sort of areas that we would like, and in the engagements that we've had with fellow patriots, things that we would have wanted to pose questions to him, and maybe to get a deeper sort of understanding and more deeper insights in terms of certain decisions being made or taken in the council, and really which are impacting and affecting the ordinary South Africans, and how do we progress, and how do we ensure that we are able to see basic service delivery around that metro, and what are maybe some of the barriers, and I think all of those touch points will come into play. But we will invite also the patriots just to engage with him. As we always say, that we created this platform for patriots. It's not for us as PSAF Live. We are just a conduit for us to ensure that the patriots are able to reach these the councillors, and we are able to have an honest engagement and conversation around matters which I deem are matters of national importance. So I see Councillor Nkuli is here, and before we proceed with the business of the day, let me ask Ugia to just come up as well, and then we will proceed with the business of the day. Host, you can just bring up Councillor Nkuli Mbundu. I know he's a patriot as well, so yeah. Maybe today we will refer to him as Patriot Nkuli. Let me hand over to Ukia, and then we'll proceed. Welcome, Kia. Okay, I think Nkuli is here. Maybe let Kia, and then we'll proceed. Welcome, Kia. All right, let me give Councillor Nkuli just the opportunity to greet the patriots, and then we'll proceed with the business of the day. Over to you, Patriots Nkuli. Just an opportunity to greet the patriots and compatriots in the space, and then we'll get into our program.
Good evening, Nkunzi. Good evening, Zeus. Good evening, Kia. Good evening, patriots. I hope I am audible.
You're loud and clear. We can hear you.
Yeah, I'm just battling to try and connect audio on my desktop, so I've just switched to my mobile device, but we should be good to go. Thank you so much for the opportunity to engage the Patriots. It's indeed a very important conversation that we need to have today. Our country is in ICU, and we can see that around. Nobody needs to be convinced. And there's plenty of questions that Patriots have. And I'm hoping that tonight we'll be in a position where we could shed some light in terms of the inner workings of government, and not just at a local level, but at a provincial and a national level, because whatever happens at a local government mirrors exactly what happens in the three spheres of government. So really the idea for me is to share with everybody what our experience has been, talk a little bit about what our challenges are. I don't want to dwell too much on that because I think all of us know those, and that's why we're here. But also to touch on what can we do? What can we do in this state of seeming hopelessness, where our power has been taken by politicians? You've got people that vote for particular parties, and then you've got political parties that then decide to go and have negotiations at a higher level, and they then sell votes, and before you know it, you've got the same problem back in government, which is not the mandate of the people. And I want to be able to articulate to the Patriots exactly how we got to this point and what it is that we need to do to change the trajectory, especially coming 2024, and getting everybody to understand. I think there's almost like a limited understanding of how government functions, and I think that's where I want to start. I want to give an overview of just our metro and the composition of the seats and the responsibilities of councillors and the parties and the legislature versus the executive and so on, so that everybody has got a view that is clear. And then I can also touch on to what happened with the multi-party coalition for us to get to this point that we're at today, and what it is that we need to jointly do to try and change this thing as we move forward. My view is that we are possibly the last hope for Joburg. A multi-party government, a coalition government, is the last hope. The ANC has failed dismally over the last 3 decades. The ANC is synonymous with corruption, it's synonymous with nepotism, it's synonymous with cadre deployment, and I'm not saying all officials, but quite a lot of them. So where we stand is that SA and the ANC cannot coexist under no circumstances. One has to die, and the choice we've got to make is who dies. Is it our country, or is it the ANC? And that will also touch on to some of the pertinent questions around Bohani Baloyi leaving the coalition, and the questions, or leaving the party, and the questions that had been raised as to why. But I'll be able to articulate that. And that as Action SA, we have made it very clear that the ANC is public enemy number one, and we will never get to bed with the ANC under no circumstances. So the minute you start to get something like that coming through, it's almost like a foreign object coming into an immune system, and the immune system naturally just kicks it off. So as Action SA, we will stick true to our election promises that we want to remove the ANC from power. That is our primary goal. And secondary to that is all the policies that we've put in place to change South Africa to become a better space for all that live in it. I'll take a bit of a pause in there because it's just the introduction, Nkunzi, and maybe Kia would like to say a couple of words, and then I can jump back in again. Thanks.
Thank you, Nkuli. Let me hand over to Kia. Maybe I did give you an opportunity earlier on. I think you were struggling with your connection. Let me bring you into the conversation. If you've got a few words on your side, Kia.
Thank you, Nkuli. I think I am much more interested on hearing about what happened with the whole bylaws and the situation with Seri, and then why was that abandoned? Because at some point you and is it David Dembe, you guys were fighting for traders to be vetted and to be given trading licenses and trading spots. And then the whole Siri thing happened, and then you were thrown under the bus by Mpho Phalatse and the DA. So I want to know, Hore, why was it then not taken forward? Why was it not challenged? Why did you decide, you don't know, you're just going to leave it and that was that? That's my question.
Okay, thanks, Gia. Before Councillor Mbundu maybe jumps into that question, I just want to rewind a little bit. From making that jump, because I think most of us, we've known you from the corporate space, and making that jump and hitting the call to come up and join and serve under the leadership here in Herman Mashaba, and being placed in the city of Johannesburg as an MMC for economic development. Just take me to what informed that decision for you, and what pushed you just to hit that call when you were only asked to come and serve in the metro.
Absolutely, Nkuzi. Maybe let me just give a bit of background. So I'm 48 years old, right? I was born in 1974, and I lived through the 80s. I was born into a very political family. Almost my entire uncles and aunts were involved in the struggle, right? My old man served 10 years in Robben Island. He was, in fact, a proper MK guerrilla that was arrested bringing arms into the country. And I grew up, in my grandmother's home on weekends. I've had personal interactions with Oliver Tambo, with Walter Sisulu, and the likes, and the underground meetings that took place as I was a young person. At the age of 12, I got involved in activism. I remember, we used to go to something called there's a primary school and a higher primary, and then you got secondary school. And I was 12 in standard 5 when I started up a revolution at school, hiding the school bell, and collecting 2 cents and 5 cents from fellow pupils to go buy petrol to make petrol bombs. I got involved in that because it's all I knew, right? And we were right on the highway, so we could watch all these trucks doing deliveries into Soweto. And we used to call them mama targets, and we used to hit them, right? Because it was all I understood. Fast forward to later, and this is the area of Bomcoach, or very few of us will probably know some of these hardcore guerrillas. I got into corporate. I went to go work overseas, and I was not involved in politics. I've never been a politician. I'm not a politician. I was an activist. And when I came back, I spent some time in the Middle East and West Africa in particular. Lived in Nigeria, where I had to have my paperwork right, by the way. My first trip into Nigeria, my second trip into Nigeria, I was turned back on the same flight because my paperwork was not right. So I lived in Nigeria, but I had to make sure that my paperwork was right. And when I returned in 2011, I looked around. I live in Melrose in Johannesburg, and I looked around for the nearest branch of the ANC. I was still bushy-eyed, bright-eyed, bushy-tail, saying, look, we've got to push this thing. And I joined the branch, and I got involved in membership. And my involvement in membership spoke to the constitution of the ANC that says that if anyone who votes in a ward has got to be a resident of the ward. And what I picked up, it was that era just after Jacob Zuma had taken over, where the floodgates were opened up on the branches, where anybody who could just join the movement, anyone, right? You don't have to have a particular criteria. You don't have to have a particular level of education or experience within the ANC, bearing in mind that the ANC was started by intellectuals. But here we were faced with people that could just go and gather people in numbers during the day. It was just after the redemarcation of Ward 73 that included Orange Grove into Houghton. Now, my branch had Mandela, Mbeki, Kgalema, and all the ANC stalwarts. So all the intellectuals and all the big ANC people, 3 presidents, you would hope that they would come to meetings, but they didn't. And I would imagine that it was an area of disgruntlement. So I got involved, and I got involved in membership. And I used to go back and forth between here and the ANC regional office, and I cleaned up the membership. And membership was like a very clandestine operation in the ANC, because anybody could just go and collect forms and have their people who will then be bussed in to vote for a particular candidate. And at that point, there were 2 candidates. It was Jacob Zuma or Kgalema Motlanthe. So we were on the Kgalema Motlanthe grouping, saying we cannot afford to have the ANC soul being stolen and being abused. And on the last minute, we got sold out by comrades within there that decided to vote the other way. Our branch did not correct, but surprisingly, when I went to Mangaung conference as an observer, I came across our branch chair with an accreditation when the branch did not correct, And that's when I knew that something is not right here. Yeah, I subsequently got a job in Batabili Zamini's office and as an advisor and so on. So the vote buying started happening at that particular era. So when I cleaned up the membership and I removed the names, and I went to go and present at the ANC branch meeting, some people were not happy. A day later, while we were still working, I got approached by 4 dirty-looking young men with guns. And they told me that I must put those names back in if I want to live. Now, you must understand that it was a very volatile area. They just killed the regional chair of the ANC in Rustenburg, as well as another region in KZN. So it was a real thing. So I got home. I spoke to my wife about it, that I've just been accosted with guns. And my wife said, Nkuli, you know what? We are young. I don't want to be a young widow. I know that you love the ANC, but this is no longer the ANC that your parents fought for. You need to leave. Very difficult decision. So I wrote a very long letter to say I'd like to resign because I don't believe in this. This thing has changed. It's no longer the same. It's no longer what we stood for. And I left politics, and that's when I got into corporate. But when I came back, I was still bored. I was thinking, okay, maybe I can support Pakistan and so on. And I supported Pakistan's campaign in Abuja, and got very, very involved until we lost out. And when we lost out, the very next day, I was there at the regional office after the EFF and the DA took over to say, man, but what can we do? And Parks was very clear to say, we will sit in opposition, it will become constructive opposition. And by then, opposition was a foreign thing for ANC, and I didn't understand how this was going to work. So I sort of supported. Fast forward to 2021, I became an activist in my neighborhood. We had this major problem of waste collectors that occupied our parks and so on. So we came up with a very creative model of raising funds from residents to protect our parks and fence them up. And the business case was very clear. You donate 5 or 10,000 rands. You've got a 5 million rand house. You're up 250,000 rands in value immediately. And I went to Jeff, the late Jeff Maku, and said, look, Mayor, we've got a solution for you across the city. We've formed something called the Joburg Parks Alliance. We'd like to offer it to the city. It's not going to cost the city anything. We just need your endorsement. We can reclaim our parks and our spaces, and we can invest in our parks and make sure that there's recreation. We've got a major problem of kids, teenage pregnancies and so on. But if we provide recreation, this is going to help us. And guess what? I got a cold shoulder. All he said to me was, oh, good work. And I thought to myself, these guys are not intent on fixing the problems that we have. And I had been approached to go and speak to Mashaba as early as March that year. And it was June by the time I was chatting to the late Jeff. And I decided, let me just go and speak to Mr. Mashaba. And I was in awe. I was so embarrassed when I sat in front of him because I always looked at him as this DA product. That myopic view that the ANC sells to people. And I thought to myself, my goodness, here's a man who loves his country. He's made enough money. He doesn't need to be doing this thing, but he wants to save it for the future generation. Now, here I am. I've got 3 kids, private school. I'm, 45% of my money goes to tax, and I still pay for private security. In my area, if you call SEPs, you'd be lucky if they're here in less than 20 minutes. But if you call CAP security, they're here in 2 minutes. I've got medical aid, I've got private school. So where's my money going? So I decided, you know what, I want to get involved. And I harassed Umashab in a big way. I mean, we fought. I mean, the poor man, I asked him tough questions in the early days and challenging his thinking. And fast forward, he said to me, look, we want patriots like you to come into the space. We want our government to swell with professionals. Would you mind coming on board and becoming a PR counselor? Now, I didn't even know what a PR counselor is. Okay, I was very comfortable in corporate. I used to work from home. It was that era of COVID, shorts every day, and Zoom calls. You wear your Zoom outfit. It was okay. I used to work for American multinationals, and I was fine. I agreed before I even spoke to my wife. By the time I spoke to my wife, I'd long decided my wife did not like it at all. My wife said, Nkuli, you cannot enter into the space. The space is dangerous. It's corrupt. We are going to be losers in this thing. Why do you want to give up something so comfortable? But for me, it was like a calling. And for many nights, we fought about it and understood where she came from. But I was blinded by the fact that I've got to get this thing done. And I just campaigned, and then I was offered the role as economic development. Mashaba said, look, we need people that come from private sector to come and run this thing. I accepted again. The worst thing was that I didn't even know what the salary was. And it later turns out that MMCs only earn a gazetted amount of like R1 million. You take home like 50 or 60,000 rand, which is a fraction of what he used to get paid. And now I was stuck with this thing to say, shucks, what have I done? But my passion just kept on going. So for the last 12 months in that space, I've been subsidizing my income because we campaigned on corruption as public enemy number 1. So therefore, when we get in there, the first thing we do is uproot corruption. So there's no way that I can even take a single cent of public service money. Now, I know it sounds altruistic, but it really was. It's a very difficult thing to do, to try and keep your head clear when you get offers left, right, and center. And I said to myself, this is not what we are here for. We are here to fix our country so that our kids can have an opportunity tomorrow. I encountered slurs. I encountered smear campaigns, things about me being involved in procurement, issues that just do not, that are just, it's just a smear campaign, But I focus. I kept my eye on the goal to say it doesn't matter. And meanwhile, home was struggling because we're now digging deeply into our reserves, to get us to this point today where we're struggling, right? But I can at least sleep at night. I'm okay to struggle, but I can sleep at night because my conscience is clear, because this is why we joined this journey. And the very first thing I did when I joined, within 30 days, I fired the chair of the Joburg Property Company for failing to act on the SIU recommendations for the PEP procurement at the Joburg Property Company. SIU was very clear to say, you need to deal with these executives. And the first thing was, I went for the head of a snake and I took them out. If you consider how many people that we have put on suspension or fired because of maladministration and corruption, I don't think anybody has done more than we have done in economic development. Sadly, fast forward to today, most of those people are back, right, with this ANC coalition. They've brought them back. They've accused us of targeting black professionals and so on, which is just complete nonsense. But they've brought back that everybody else that we had to try to clean out of the system, because it is a system. It is endemic. It is a systematic thing. This is how it is designed. So to watch our city regress after all the work that we had done is really disheartening. So one has to pep themselves up every morning and say, Nkuli, wake up and just keep going, keep pushing, keep trying, do not stop, because we didn't start this journey to stop, So that's how I got to this point, in Kunzi. It was really to make sure that beyond our time. Our kids need a future, and we have got to be able to show the world that it is possible to be black and be in government and be ethical. Very possible that they've associated corruption with blackness. Let alone that we've got the Steenhoff, which is the biggest corruption scandal that the country has faced, and so on. But the narrative that is being pushed is corruption and ANC and black, and we wanted to try and turn that and give hope to our kids that you can be in government and you can be ethical. So while we're out of government, but I can say I'm so happy. I'm like I sleep better at night because I know I did my best. I've given my best to the country. Nobody will know the pains that we face as we live, but that level of selflessness brings so much reward for some of us. And this is where I'd like to get more of us to come into the space, to give up their comfort and give in and try and rescue this country of ours. We've only got one country. We don't have two passports, right? We've only got one passport. There are people who've got two passports that can leave tomorrow. We don't have that option. And therefore, we're going to continue to fight for what we have. And if we don't fight, we're going to wake up tomorrow with a country that is invaded. I read an article in City Press today. The city of Johannesburg has just gone into complete dilapidation. No services, it's filthy, waste is not collected, billing is completely incorrect. There's just no service. And if we don't get into these spaces as professionals, as patriots, we are going to be led by people that know less. Plato says that the penalty for not getting involved in politics is that you're going to end up being led by your inferiors. And I can tell you that right now, that we are being led by inferiors. Just watch the current Joburg mayor as we speak. A mayor of an entire city, the biggest city in Africa. And just listen to what they say, right? So I've got to call these things out and say, that it's a compromise decision that they've taken. But these guys make decisions on our behalf. We vote for them to go in power, but they then make decisions on our behalf that only benefits their own pockets. They don't think about service delivery. They don't think about eradicating corruption. Ramaphosa speaks highly about eradicating corruption, but he still allows these things to happen. So we have got a crisis situation. Going back to my point that our city is in ICU, and we need to jump in and take control. The last point I want to make on this is that how do we take control? We've got to get out and vote. 18 million people did not vote. Of the 18 that voted, 10 voted for the ANC. Now, the ANC has got this whole social grant system going on. In 2006, there were 2.5 million people on social grants. Today, there's 25 million people. These people believe that the ANC has given them that money. These people believe that the ANC has given them RDP homes and so on. So they'll continue voting. So the more voter apathy we experience, the more we give the ANC the power to continue. And I'm sorry, you cannot fix the ANC. There's no way you can fix the ANC. Not from the inside. As much as I like and I respect Gayton McKenzie, for example, there's no way that you're going to go into partnership with these guys and hope to fix it, because you are not going to hold them accountable. Case in point is the fact that as we speak right now, a lot of these corrupt people are back right under the watch of a MACOM that the likes of the PA are part of. So the question is, can we fix it being part of it? No. You've got to get them out of power and take the control, ourselves. So I'll take a bit of a pause there. I was sort of giving a view in terms of how I go to this point.
Thank you very much. And we will touch on that burning issue presently with regards to that motion that was tabled in council. It is a burning issue, and we just need to touch on that and try and exhaust it today. I was hoping PA did say that they will join today. We had another engagement with them yesterday, and they did say that they will also join with regards to that. But we will see if they are able to join. In terms of the multi-party coalition And I'm looking now at the what do we call? How can I put it? In terms of the consistency, because it feels as though Nkuli, it's a stop and start sort of type of approach. Because one minute you have this MMC in a portfolio, and they might have tabled their own sort of performance areas and what they will want to look at and focus on during their tenure in that position. And you find it that they are removed, as we saw that it happened now when there was that vote of no confidence, and we had to reset the metro, new MMCs coming into the metro. So in terms of this coalition, multi-party coalition, for me, it's yes, I think we want to get the ANC out, and we are getting sort of different leaders being put. Yeah, I'm using the word leaders loosely here, being put in those positions. But it feels as though there's just no continuity. And are you for the coalitions, or would you say if we get the right party there, that we know we can hold them to account for that period, when they're taking up government for that period, we know we've got a single person. Because you find what tends to happen is that you go there, there's issues of service delivery, and then this one will blame the previous one to say, no, it was this previous administrator which took power at this certain time, who didn't deliver on X, Y, and Z, and it just becomes a blame game. And there's just not, it's not fluid. There's not that flowing. It does not flow. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So in terms of when we weigh the two, multi-party coalition and versus having a single sort of entity that we can put there and say, we're giving you your time to serve in power and in government, and you show us what you can deliver. How would you weigh the two?
So, look, coalitions are the future. That is, I think we've learned our lessons on a one-party state. A one-party state doesn't hold itself accountable. And especially once you've got a party like the ANC that is inherently corrupt. That's just, people who wake up to just go and steal every day. And stealing is the norm, right? It's like, it's become a culture. So that's not going to work for us. Coalitions are the future. Now, if you look at established coalitions, Denmark, for example, right, has been run by a coalition government and a minority government. And what they say is those who are in power roll out the red carpet for coalition partners. It boils down to respect of your coalition partners, understanding the importance that it is not like we have right now. The narrative is a DA-led. No, there's nothing like a DA-led. It's a multi-party government. The fact that in Johannesburg, the DA has got 71 seats and Action SA has got 44 seats doesn't mean the DA is a bigger brother. So the problem that we faced here was the maturity of coalitions and the other parties, the DA in particular, to understand that they are not the big brother. Now, let me take it back to November 2021 when we voted the mayor in. So we had negotiations, coalition negotiations. The DA, Freedom Front Plus, ACDP, IFP, and so on. And at that point, it was going to be Mashaba as mayor. And everybody agreed that Mashaba should be mayor because he's had this experience and he understands it. But the DA pulled out of the negotiations 2 days before the election of a mayor. So we walk on the morning of the election of a mayor, knowing that we decimated as a multi-party. So guess what happens? And Mashaba calls up Floyd Shivambu and says, look, we can't let this thing go to the ANC because with their 91 seats plus their smaller parties, they'll probably form a minority government. Let us vote the DA in. So we voted the DA in. We are not partners, so to speak. We have voted them in by force. right? So I was sitting there watching the elections take place when we started off with the speaker, and of the 270 seats in council, the DA got about 158 or thereabout. They didn't understand what was happening, how we had voted them. And then it came to the mayor election. We then voted them again. We voted Mpopalatse in. We abstained as Action SA. And at that point, the ANC realized that they'd lost this thing. So they walked out of the election of the chief whip. Now, the DA now suddenly had this thing and they had to deliver. But our view has always been that the DA is not intent on leading. They are minding their own little constituencies. They are happy to look after their own little constituencies, which is something that is fundamentally flawed in their approach. And it frustrated our work, in government. I'll come back to the point that the question that Kia is asking about what happened in De Villiers, because it's a classic case of disrespect by coalition partners, understanding that we have got more numbers, so therefore we have a higher voice, or therefore we have a say. Coalitions need to mature to a point where there is an understanding that we are coalition partners, we are equal partners. We are not DA-led or Action SA-led or IFP-led. We are equal partners in that space. And I think we are getting to that space. And I'm from where I sit, I think with the transformation that's taking place in the DA, and we can't avoid them, right? So they've got to be here. We are likely to see a change in how coalitions are run come 2024. 2024 is going to be coalition government, guaranteed. All right. If unfortunately we've got a very risky position that if the ANC gets 40% and the EFF gets 10%, they are going to run this together, and it's the worst. It's a nightmare for us to have both the ANC and EFF running it. On the other side, you've got the DA that have said they will work with the ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa. So if the ANC slides further to about 35% and the DA comes in with their 20%, they can run it. They are prepared to do that. Those are two worst scenarios, but this is where you sell off your votes, because for me, a vote for the EFF or a vote for the DA is a vote for the ANC, right? But either way, my view is that coalitions are the future, and in them being the future, we just need mutual respect amongst coalition partners. How we lost the city of Johannesburg is negotiations started in November last year, where Herman Mashaba approached the coalition partners to say, look, we know that we are going to face a vote of no confidence in January. Can we put together a coalition? Now, there's 270 seats in council. The multi-party government at that point, in fact, prior to that point, had 138 seats. 138 made up of Action SA 44, the DA 71, IFP 7, UIM 1, I think it was, what's the other party? PA 8, and so on. And knowing that the PA had now moved on to support the ANC, we knew that we were sitting at 130 votes of the 270. We don't want to make the numbers. And the proposal was made to bring the PA back on board. The DA only got back to us on the 10th of January, and they said, no, we'll go and negotiate with the DA, with the PA, we'll get them back on board. The PA said, okay, for me to come on board, I want 2 seats. I want EISD, the Environment and Infrastructure Division, and transport. And the DA said, no, you cannot come into the coalition with a better position than you were because you betrayed us. We can only offer you one position, which is transport. So that position was taken back to the PA, and the PA said, absolutely not. We're not going to be part of this thing because we are all about power. Gating is very clear. We want power and we want access to resources. And the PA was offered only transport, and they rejected it. So when they rejected it, what Herman Mashaba did was to say, look, transport is an Action SA portfolio. So Fuzi was going to move to become the speaker if we get we give away our transport portfolio. And he said, I'll give away 2 of my portfolios. I'll give away economic development as well, which is my portfolio. I mean, I had a fit when I learned this thing, and I went, eventually he called me out for tea, and we spoke, and he explained to me what the dynamics were, and I understood, right? So he was saying, look, we've got to save this thing at all costs. Let's just give away 2 portfolios we can manage. In that negotiation, we negotiated to say the boards of the entities cannot be changed. The DA's logic was that if you give economic development to the PA are corrupt and they're going to steal and this and that. But I mean, it's only R1 billion portfolio, and yet you're prepared to give them a R5 billion capex portfolio, which is transport. It just does not make sense. How do you give them a R5 billion portfolio and deny them a R1 billion portfolio? And to us, that was very clear to say the DA does not want us to remain in government leading to 2024. So at all costs, the Action SA must be removed because we're eating a great deal into their base. So for us, our existence was a threat to them. And therefore, this illogical idea of saying we can't give you economic development when Action SA is offering economic development. So the PA said, no, absolutely not. We're not going to accept that. And we're going to move on with the ANC. And that's how we lost this thing. Right? And they got into the ANC coalition and they got their two portfolios. Whereas we could have held it tightly and managed it tightly where you cannot change the boards. Because remember, if you can't change the boards, you can't change the executive, which means you can't influence procurement, right? And this was my particular suggestion to say, let's tighten up the coalition agreement at that level where we cannot change these things. And that way, there's no way you can't have a fear of corruption. I mean, we said to them, give us proof. What has the PA done? If you say they're corrupt, what have they done? And they could not come back with the proof. And yet they denied accepting this. So, and that's how we lost it. But fast forward to where we are right now. This inconsistency is not good for our democracy. It's not good for our governance, because you put your programs, you get your IDPs, you get your budgeting done, you get your programs done, and you debate on these programs and agree that we've got to spread the budget in a number of areas, and then the other guys come in and then they change everything else. And now there's infighting in that coalition. So we are likely to see the PA leave the coalition. So we're likely to have a hung council, basically, where you've got the ANC coalition running as a minority government, which is the worst possible scenario as well for us as a city of Johannesburg. And whatever happens here influences what happens at province and happens at national. As that is currently happening, because I think Gaten was very clear last week to say they are concerned that their brand identity is being damaged in this partnership with the ANC simply because of how the ANC does their things. These guys are blatant. They do not mess around. They do what they want to do. They will violate laws. They will do whatever it takes, and they don't care. So I think the PA is now concerned that this is impacting them negatively on their reputation. So if they pull out, we're likely to have a hung municipality. And it's going to impact decisions taking forward. So to answer your question on coalitions are the future, but I think we need to get to a point of maturity around how we respect each other and manage each other as coalition partners. But prize number one is to make sure that you give a particular party, at least, or a group of parties, the mandate in the ballot box more than what we saw in the 2021 local government election, where we, for example, as Action SA only got 44 seats. We need to get more, right? So if we have outright majority, it becomes simpler. And how to get outright majority is to really avoid splitting the votes, and it's to really avoid voter apathy that is currently taking place. So I think we need to get to a space where we get our people out there to go and vote. They can vote for whoever. We're not saying vote for Action SA or vote for anybody, but just don't vote for the ANC. Dilute the ANC vote if we have any hope of a strong coalition moving into the future. I'll pause there.
That is the voice of Nkuli Mbundu, and you are in the patriotic space. We will be opening up for speakers to come up. Just a few points that Nkuli needs to just touch on, and then maybe we'll try and do just around 9:15. I think we will be opening up for speakers to also come up and just engage Nkuli. And we've been seeing your requests. It's not that we are just ignoring them. We just want to ensure that he is able to unpack from his side before we can just have our speakers engage him. And his space, it is recorded, so we'll just ask everyone, just when we engage, let us do it in a professional manner as well, because we have to post these spaces in other platforms, and there's quite strict rules with regards to that. Yeah, maybe let me go to question here. Before I go there, please, co-host, just manage the questions from me. Lapagu angenayo lapana the question box. Host, just manage for me if there's anything that's coming on the inbox as well. Kuma DMs, please just manage those. As you can see me, I'm on my other account. I'm not on PSAF Live account. So if you can just manage that for us, thank you very much. Maybe let's jump into the issue Gasiri. And I also want to look at the issue of enforcing bylaws within, specifically around Johannesburg. Because I think that's the main concern. And if you're looking at the city of Johannesburg Metro Municipality, the main center of attraction will be Johannesburg CBD. And I just want to jump into a question here, just maybe, and then we'll after that, just also maybe unpack around the issue Yama bylaws as you understand it, and the enforcing of Yama bylaws, specifically looking at Johannesburg.
So, the Siri experience was really unfortunate. We had one chance to show the people of Joburg that change is possible. How this thing started was we sat together, former MC Ufunzi, to say, look, we've got a problem in the inner city. And the problem that we face in the inner city is the proliferation of undocumented migrants in the trading space. And it's illegal in its context. We need to regulate and regularize that space, especially after we had passed the informal trade policy. And how we looked to it was to make sure that we get everybody that is a trader in the streets to come and vet themselves. So we went on this operation, which was a normal part of bylaw enforcement. It's called Buyamthetho. On the day, we decided, on this particular day, we're going to get there. Before people start to trade, we want them to come and verify themselves. We'll put trading stalls in there. Bear in mind that there's about 14 or 15 different informal trader associations represented in the city. And we had been engaging with them, taking them along. I'd been having lots of talks with them, and the large majority had been supportive. But there was one particular informal trader association called SAITF that appeared to represent foreign nationals. Now, the issue is not about foreign nationals. The issue is about undocumented migrants trading in that space and practicing illegal services in that particular space. So we had said to them, you guys come and verify yourselves. We've got a rent roll. We start with De Villiers. There's only 200 traders in De Villiers, but the optics don't lie. There's about 600 when you go there. They're trading in the middle of the street. They're trading on the pavements. It is just complete lawlessness. And these guys refused to come and verify themselves. So we had a standoff with them, and they refused completely. So what happened was they went to Seri to say, look, we are being victimized for trading in this space. And I said to them, but you're not being victimized. All we want is for you to just come and verify that you are who you say you are. The policy is very clear. One trader, one stall, and the person that trades there has to be that particular person. But the thrift market in itself and the illegal goods market is so big, and it's got such vested interest in that space that these people were not prepared to do it. I got a call from Siri on a Saturday evening saying that I must present myself at a press conference on a Monday. And I said to them, but it's not like I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs. I've got a full day, rather come to my office, let's have a meeting. They refused. And then I got a call from the mayor of Mpopalazi on a Monday morning saying, look, I'm seeing Seri today. You have put the city into disrepute. I am going to, legal has advised us that we in violation of the constitutional court order, and therefore I'm going to be meeting with them and I'm going to issue a statement. So immediately I went and I spoke to Mashaba to say, hey, look, here's what's happening. Mashaba went straight to the coalition oversight committee to stop this process because here's my own mayor throwing me under the bus and I'm part of the MMC. And I'm saying to them, we did not violate. What they're citing, there's Part A and Part B of the Concord of 2013. And Part B, what they're citing it on is that when Pakistan went and stopped traders, they demolished stores, they stopped them from trading, they confiscated goods. We did none of that. None. All we said was, just come and verify, here's a desk. So we're not in violation. You can't say we're in violation. We just need to make sure that we enforce our laws properly. I got Home Affairs involved. I got SAPS involved. And they decided that, no, this is not the way we should go. Legal has given us this input. And before you know it, Seri issued the statement. The mayor's statement came from Seri. It didn't come from the mayor's office. So Seri had been building up the statement. When Mabina Siabe went to go and speak to that conference, Seri had already published a statement that says the mayor condemns the actions of MMC Mbundu. Now you ask yourself, how does Seri get a hold of the statement? Because Mabina could not issue that statement because they'd been stopped from a coalition perspective. But nonetheless, the statement went out and I was condemned. And then I sat with the guys from legal and I pointed out that this is not Operation Clean Sweep. We did not violate anything. How did you guys decide to go and settle out of court with Seri? They said it was an urgent application. I said, but how did you not consult me as a respondent? They said, no, because it was urgent and, oh yeah, we made a mistake. And I said, but you see now, the optics that are going into public are such that we are in violation as a city when we are not. You should not have done that. And I expressed my disappointment to Mpopalazi, even in our last MECO meeting. She will tell you, smack in the middle of just cabinet, in fact. And I said, I'm so disappointed that we had one chance to go and fix this thing, but you curtailed us and you closed us down. So now we've got to go back and start to try and figure out how we put the structures in place, the task team, the informal trader stakeholder forum, and a decision must come from there and so on. When we could have made sure that we deal decisively with illegal trading in the city and we can demonstrate that it is doable. We need a strong arm to make it happen. But, like Luka says, I was thrown under the bus, and the subsequent to that was that let's just try and put up the structures. And before you know it, we were illegally ousted on the 29th of September. So it lost momentum. We could not pick up. By the time we came back on the 25th of October, it was leading towards the holiday period. The officials were not working. There was uncertainty. So it took time. But then we focused and said, look, let's make sure that we implement this thing. Come January, we're going to go hard. And by the time we came back in January, we were ousted again. So we could not finish up on the process. So that whole Seri thing is really, really unfortunate. And I think it talks to the policies that we put in place moving forward about the powers that the NGOs have in the judiciary. Right? We cannot have NGOs coming to dictate to us. These are not patriotic people. These people do not care about South Africa. They don't care about the well-being of our people. We've got 74% youth unemployment, 50% unemployment. Our own people are suffering. You cannot feed your neighbor's kids until yours are full. So it brings me to a point to say South Africa must be for South Africans. Number one, priority. Unfortunately, we are restricted by the laws today that it says in the Immigration Act 13 of 2002 that an asylum seeker is allowed to trade. So they ride on that thing. But are these people really asylum seekers? Hell no. These are economic migrants. They come into the country and then they leave in December to go home and then come back again. These are not asylum seekers. These are economic migrants. So I went to Home Affairs and said, but let me have a look at your database. There's a database called HANIS, the Home Affairs National Identification System, and then there's an asylum seeker database. They don't talk to each other. So Home Affairs in itself is in tatters. So they are not even in a position where they can regulate immigrants coming into the country. They don't respond in time. I can put it clearly that there is no political repression taking place in these countries where these people are coming from. There is no political repression. There's no war. These are migrants, and not just African migrants, by the way, because we are being accused of being xenophobic. They come from the rest of Africa. They come from Pakistan, Bangladesh, China, East Europe, right? So when we talk about illegal immigration, it's across the board, and they come and trade in the streets. There's no reason why somebody should cross the border to come and do someone's hair, on the side of the road. So how we need to address this thing is by introducing a law that talks to reserved sectors, where you have got particular sectors of the market that are reserved for South Africans: hairdressing, motor mechanics, plaza shops, Uber drivers, ride hailers, the scooter guys. I mean, hell knows how these guys even get their licenses to ride scooters. So those have got to be reserved for our people. And this is what we are taking as a message into 2024. To say, let's first look after our people. We are open to the people of the world, but they must be here legally and they must obey our laws. I, for one, have been an expatriate in foreign countries. I have had to have my paperwork right before I leave. Like I said earlier, I was turned back on the same flight from Nigeria because my visa had expired and I was not aware. It was only my second trip. Innocent as I was, going to deliver value in that particular country. I had to fix it and then go back. And each time I was there, I needed to keep my paperwork right next to me. So why are we taking on the problems of the world? Why are we a country where failed governments outsource their problems to us? We should not. We should take a very tough stance on migration. They can call us xenophobic if they want to. If it means that we need to bring law and order into our country, xenophobic, so be it. We don't care. But I think we need to fix that. We can't be a welfare state of other countries. We need to fix it. And once we fix it, then we can take care of the rest. We've got a finite tax base of 7.8 million people that pay tax in the country. It cannot deliver for the 15 or 20 million illegal migrants that are in the country. So the issue around Seri is so contentious and so important as a case that we need to make sure that we regulate how NGOs do their work. But we also need to make sure that we simply implement bylaws strictly, right, at a municipal level, but also at a national level, and holding the judiciary responsible. We cannot have this crisis continue. It continues like this, it is not sustainable. We are not going to be to have a country with kids who cannot have school, don't have access to schools today, but migrant kids get access to schools. So what we're saying is, can everybody just be here, be legally, and bring value, bring skill, bring scarce skill, not elementary work. So yeah, I mean that's what happened with Siri. Let me just pause there for a while.
All right. Thank you. We are in conversation with Nkuli Mbundu and a patriot. I think ngiqale phakathi this question. Actually, I was supposed to start this question from the adoption informal trader policy. Maybe you can briefly just take us through the initial work and how did you sort of start that off? What prompted you in your portfolio at that time just to initiate that? I know it's well documented, that victory, and just in terms of what was it looking to address. Maybe just if you can just give a quick synopsis with regards to that. But let me give to co-host before you jump into that. Kia, you can just direct, and then Nkuli will pick up.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to know, can us as citizens, can we take Siri to court over the whole situation? Like, is it possible for an ordinary citizen, like if we decide, okay, Siri, we're going to take you to court over this matter, can we do that?
Well, here, look, we've got laws, right? And the laws permit the likes of Siri to approach the courts and put applications in front of the courts. Our laws today are structured in such a way that it empowers that to happen. There's freedom to do that. So we could debate this at a constitutional court level. I don't think it's about Siri. I think it's above Siri. It's really about enforcing our laws, our Immigration Act, and holding the Home Affairs accountable. So if there's anybody we're going to take to court, it's Home Affairs. If we were to crowdsource legal funding, it's Home Affairs that we've got to hold accountable, because they've got a constitutional responsibility to keep our borders safe. They've got a constitutional responsibility to make sure that whoever is here legally. So this is an entity that needs to be taken to court. Siri is a very small fry in this thing, right? They've exploited a loophole, call it what it is, right? And they will continue doing that because they are heavily funded by other parties from outside of the country. And my view, and this is my personal view, right, that this funding is really geared towards modern day slavery, because illegal immigrants are not unionized, right? By the way, I don't believe in unions, okay, to start with, because it's really destructive. But because they don't have rights, you can exploit them. So the people who are defending this, if you go to any restaurant today, it's foreigners who are serving you. Why? Because cheap labor, and they will not complain. So big business has got to be held accountable. So there's two parts that need to be taken to account here. Number one is Home Affairs, to make sure that they deliver on their constitutional mandate. Number two is big business, medium-sized and big business, that keep hiring these people. These are the people that we need to take to court. The likes of Siri will fall by the wayside because the law allows them to do what they do. So if we have to do anything, those are the two entities that we've got to focus on. Now, coming back to the question, Nkuli, is that when we came in December 2021, we looked at priorities and said, look, what do we need to focus on in the first 100 days in office, which turned out to be a 200-day function, because we were delayed by protracted negotiations and so on. So it lost about 3 weeks from November to about mid-December. So it became a 200-day program. Now, as economic development, I had a simple task. Number one, eradicate unemployment. Number two, stimulate the economy and the development of small businesses. Very, very important. Number three, make the city attractive to invest in. And then I looked around and said, the city for me is the city of Johannesburg, the hub. When you look at the 1950 spatial plan, people will leave Emapetla or in the Rosebank to exchange a taxi, and then go to Rosebank, right? The same way as somebody who comes from Tembisa who works in Sandton, or not in Sandton, but no, maybe around Joburg. So it's a hub. This is where the economy functions. Now, I started realizing that a lot of big businesses had left. The last tenant that left was Anglo. And there was a capital flight out of the city of Johannesburg. So the focus was, how do we recover the city of Johannesburg? Number one, bring back the rule of law. Number two, regulate the trading space, because wherever you go, there's trading everywhere, and there's filth everywhere because there are no services that these people are paying for. So let's fix that. So we sought to fix that. And then the policy was there. It was in draft. It started in 2018. It went through public participation. It went through the Section 79 subcommittee oversight that looks at it. And eventually, all it had to be done was just to be implemented and passed in council. It's simple as that. So we took a policy that was already there. We could not add anything to it. We could not change anything to it. All we could do was just implement and then put amendments later. So we took the ANC and the EFF's own policy and put it into action. So what we did was just action, just make sure that it is put in place. Now that it's put in place, okay, now we're going to go for a second round of amendments and look at the localization rules and so on, and how people need to trade. And so there's nothing mind-blowing that we did. We simply just implemented what they had, noting that there's a number of these policies that are in place but were never enacted. Why? Because two reasons. Number one, there's vested interest in keeping status quo. There are people who are benefiting out of chaos. And number two is just pure basic ineptitude, just the inability and lack of political will to make that change. And that's what we introduced into it. And that's why we go to a point where we pass informal trade policy. It promised us the ability to transform the city of Johannesburg. We're going to reduce trading spaces, demarcate particular spaces, and make sure that our people make more money, and the people that are deserving of it can grow up the value chain and not just remain traders. We're looking to improve their lives by eradicating illegality. Unfortunately, it is what it is that we got ousted before we could continue. Today, I mean, I can tell you, it's been almost 60 days since this administration has come into play. Nothing has happened. Zero. So you ask yourself the question, what have they done? If you came to my office, you'd see ITP, informal trade policy, was priority number one with a list of activities, the system that we need to put in place and so on. But guess what? 60 days into the administration, zero has been done. I can tell you for a fact that informal traders probably have not been consulted up until this point. So that is not going to change. So it boils down to political will. So answering your question, Nkuli and UK, is really we just need to go back and really hold the Home Office accountable and big business, but also hold our government accountable for implementing and doing what is right. There's a lesser hope of the latter because there is no political will, because their will is just to eat, nothing else but to eat. They're looking at deals, they're looking at tenders, they're looking at how they're going to raise money for their campaign moving into 2024. There's absolutely zero to do with service delivery to our people. I'll pause.
Thank you. That is the voice of Councillor Nkuli Mbundu, joining us on the Patriotic Space. Let's look on the national elections, which are coming in 2024, and the road to the 2024 national elections. Now, speaking Action SA now, I think we can both agree in terms of the high unemployment rates, some of the major challenges impacting ordinary South Africans, looking at crime levels in the country, unemployment, service delivery. What are the plans from Action SA put in place in terms of addressing those, and what are you guys looking at in terms of the 2024 elections? What in terms of are you looking to go into the National Assembly? I'll assume that is the part of the plan, but maybe just to unpack in terms of those two questions.
Yeah, so maybe let's agree that coalitions are the future. So the 2024 government is going to be a coalition. What is that likely to look like? You've got a block. You've got three blocks. You've got an ANC EFF coalition, which is the worst possible option. You've got a DA ANC coalition, which I would really love to have quietly, because that's the end of the DA having sold their votes. But then you've got a third angle, which is the Action SA, Freedom Front Plus, ACDP, IFP, and maybe a few other entrants coming into play. So we understand that the landscape is that it's going to be coalition. Now let's go back to our vision as Action SA, right? So we talk about a shared future for our children. We talk about overcoming the legacy of apartheid. We cannot fight the way people are fighting today. You organize an anarchist march just for the sake of it. But you've got to understand that to overcome the legacy of apartheid, you've got to fix the education system. You've got to fix the healthcare system. Just the basics, right? You've got to eradicate corruption. South Africa is going to be for South Africans, guaranteed. We've got to make sure that we put our people first. So in terms of immigration laws, we have to be extremely tight on implementing them. Ethical leadership. We need more people to come into government that are ethical leaders, that are not coming in because they are hungry, that are coming in because they do believe that they can bring change, and that takes a lot of sacrifice. We're talking about equal opportunity for every South African. There has to be an equal opportunity. Now, there's a difference between equal opportunity and or equal in equity. Equity talks to making sure that you give advantage to those that were disenfranchised, but not at the disadvantage of the others, which is why we're going to scrap BE altogether, because it just doesn't work. BE works only for a few select clique. I mean, if I have to ask any of the patriots here to say who's a beneficiary of BE, probably no one, because BE just benefits. The policy is great, but the implementation was a cadre implementation. It's about how it was implemented. We've got to transform that. So you've got to transform that equity space in terms of giving opportunities to small businesses. I can give you an example. One of the biggest challenges that we have in the country today is something called credit bureau. So you skip on your payment once or twice, and small businesses will struggle. Then you've got a bad payment record, and no banks want to finance you. Guess what? In the US, you fail 10 times, the 11th time they'll still fund you. We've got to have a risk-taking appetite. We've got to recognize that when we give opportunity to young Black people in particular, we take the notion that we scrap this whole credit bureau system that disadvantages them and take a chance, and give them that opportunity, but not indiscriminate. I think there's more than enough to share on the platter. Then you talk about a socially just government. We've got to be able to look after the vulnerable of our communities. Right now, we've got a big problem of social grant beneficiaries. People are living longer. They're saying the first person that is going to live to 180 years old is already alive. Now you can imagine you work for 60 years of your life and you save up a certain amount of money. Then you're going to live another 100 years thereafter. There's not enough money to cater for you. So we've got to now start to look at how to extend the working life, because these people are active and economically active, to stretch the retirement age and push it forward so that somebody who's 60, 70 still has a brain, still has hands, still has the ability to work. Stop forcing people to stop working earlier. Let them work longer and they're more committed, right? I spoke about the education system that recognizes talent. When we grew up, we used to have technical colleges where we'd go do woodwork, go do plumbing, to whatever. We've got to bring those back, because not everyone is going to make it to university. But yet, there is lots of people that have got skills, that artisan skills, that are able to convert those skills into something meaningful for their lives. You disenfranchise them when you say you've got to be a university graduate. No, let us get technical colleges back up. From grade 10 now it is. Some people are not going to even make matric. That's fine, accept that, but they've got the skill. So you've got to open up technical colleges where you can get artisan skills training taking place. The last part is safety and security. We cannot compromise on safety and security. Safety and security also talks to the point around the death penalty. Now, I know that it's a burning point. Should we bring the death penalty? Yes, I believe we should. Okay, it is a deterrent. If you know you are going to die, if you know you're going to be caught, number one. And when you're caught, you are going to die for a particular crime. You are less likely to commit that crime. The challenge we face, though, today is that our judiciary system is not mature enough. We are likely to kill a lot more innocent people simply because we do not have an efficient judiciary system. So we've got to fix that part first. Fix it and make sure that, cases don't go missing. Documents, some documents don't go missing. That people in the SAPS and people in correctional services and justice understand their function. So we've got to professionalize that space before you can bring something like a death penalty into play. Because otherwise, you're gonna hang a lot of innocent people. I don't think that's where we want to be. But we do believe that you've got to bring the death penalty, but you've got to do it responsibly and make sure that the things that the ancillary support functions or the ecosystem is well functioning. So there's a lot of work that needs. I think we're probably about 5 years from the death penalty, because we've got a lot of work to fix correctional services, a lot of work to fix. I mean, look at what happened with Thabo Pester. Guy fakes his death and he escapes from a high security prison. What on earth is that? Escapes from a high security, and he goes and lives a comfortable lifestyle until somebody spots him by chance. So that tells you that there is a problem within our system in itself, and it's a culture of bribery. You still have a lot of people that take bribes to support this criminality. So once we deal with that, once we have dealt with that, then we can start to talk about bringing the issues around the death penalty, so that we can protect the people who are innocent in that instance. I'll pause.
All right. Maybe as we wrap up, so that we can open up for the speakers. Yeah. We saw that motion which was tabled by one of the councillors this week with regards to the issue of building toilets, and we saw it playing out here on Twitter. I won't say much around that. I think I'll give you a free reign to shoot from all angles in terms of addressing that, and then you can just speak to any other point thereafter that you feel it's important for you to touch on, and then I'll be taking the speakers thereafter.
So I had an exchange, Keaton, yesterday, and I said to him, "Look, leader, I don't like to argue with you on Twitter because we've got a common purpose. But I think your association with the ANC is bringing your party down." He'll tell you that. It's bringing your brand down. You've been doing such good work, but this is not it. What we experienced in council last week, here we table a motion to say we need to build toilets for the informal settlements. Bear in mind, in the 2016-2019 era, Hemen Mashaba electrified the Cape Town settlement because he wanted to bring dignity to the people, which is one of the reasons why the DA conspired to get him out, because they were saying, look, you are using our money to go and build toilets for people and electricity for people that are not paying for services and so on. And Hemen Mashaba said, look, I cannot sleep at night if my people don't have toilets and don't have electricity. So we have always been pro-poor. Now here we bring a motion to say we need to eradicate a citywide eradication of the bucket toilet system. And come to the voting, the EFF, the ANC, and the PA shoot down the vote. They don't support it. Now, I don't expect much from the ANC, right? So it's not in their interest. But I expected some support from the PA to say, yes, this is Cape Town, this is an informal settlement, let us support in building toilets. And they didn't. So they shot that thing down, so the vote didn't pass. Now I was then surprised to see Gayton come back and defend this thing, saying, no, but you can't build toilets when the houses are falling apart. Hold on, we're talking about informal settlements. We're not talking about places with houses. The pictures that he posted were houses, nothing to do with Imikuku, where we electrified before, want to bring toilets. Yes, great idea that let's build them houses, but that item is not even anywhere close to any agenda in council to build homes. The city doesn't even have that kind of money to build homes. But at least can we give people dignity in the process? There's a young girl right now as we speak who's on a period, who has to navigate to find a toilet at night. Can you not give her dignity? And she's going to navigate through, all these dangerous corners in that space. Can't we at least give them dignity so that by the time they wake up tomorrow, they at least can focus on being productive? So them shooting down this thing is taking away dignity from our people. And the logic is just completely flawed. With all due respect, like Gayton, I respect him, but this is just completely flawed. It was just an injustice to our people. What happened there was cattle voting, was to oppose for the sake of opposing. Bear in mind, there's something called the programming committee. So before any item goes to council, it goes through a programming committee that decides, and it's represented by all political parties, at least 2 members, I think, per party, that decides what has to be tabled in council. Then we later learned that, no, these guys are now trying to push this motion in council. They'll bring it back. In the next council meeting, or the following one, maybe in May, they'll bring it back as theirs. So it's political point scoring, nothing to do with serving the residents of the city. They'll bring it back. And this is where I'm saying we need mature opposition. We need mature politics. Let us not shoot down an idea simply because it comes from a particular party. Let's support it. We supported so many motions that came from the EFF. Orange Farm has got sections that don't have street names, for example. They can't find the people. You can't do anything. So we said, we'll support that motion. Ivory Park, demarcation, there's a particular part of Ivory Park that's between Nkuli and the city of Johannesburg. We supported their motion to say we need to review the demarcation and make sure that it falls into the right space. Zandspruit and all these, we supported them. So we don't say we don't support simply because you're AFF. No, because it means service delivery. But it was hugely disappointing to watch the PA and the EFF reject and rob our people of dignity. For me, it was just completely hypocritical. When you say, I want to serve my people, but then you turn around and you shoot down something like this simply because it comes from from Action SA. We should not be like that. It talks to the maturity of our politics. We need to understand that we are there as elected councillors to serve in the interest of the people. And therefore, when something comes and it makes sense, let us all jointly support it. Right? We may disagree on ideology, we may disagree on strategy and so on. It's okay. Some are socialists, some are capitalists. But when it comes to basic service delivery, if we're saying we're pro-poor, let us all agree and support. And that is maturity. And to watch those guys, those councillors not supporting this thing, for me, is that our problems are even deeper. Even worse when, the leader comes and defends it. I would have accepted if he said, hey, I think my people made a mistake, I will deal with it. That way it's more humane, But to come back and try and defend it and try and deflect and present a different picture, it was just completely demotivating. But let's hope that they'll bring it and we'll support it. If they decide to bring it under their banner, we will support it. We're not going to oppose it for the sake of opposing it, because our people need the services. Our people are desperate for services. Us as councillors, we are there elected by people to improve the lives of our people. That's our responsibility. That's the oath that we take in office when we go in as councillors. And people need to understand their functions and their responsibilities for the jobs that they take, that they get into.
You are tuned into the patriotic space. We'll open up for questions and submissions from our speakers. Host Kia, please, you will drive this for me, and just the order of speakers. Before we go into the speakers, just some rules around that. I think we'll allocate 3 minutes to each speaker, and this is a patriotic space. It's about finding solutions for South Africans, and we will only be taking questions and engaging South Africans because we want to advance the cause of the South Africans. So that's just the rules around that. Maybe before we jump into questions, I'll give Councillor Mbundu just the next 2 minutes. If there's any other additional points that maybe not 2 minutes. Let me not limit you for time. Any other additional points before we go into questioning? Maybe we'll open up at 9:30. We'll take our first round of speakers. Maybe if there's any additional points that you want to touch on before I take on the speakers.
Nkuli, look, I think maybe let's open it up. I think there's going to be a lot more questions, and I'd like to give that opportunity for our patrons to ask the questions up. But I think just the one thing is that we need to stand up and take a stand, right? We need to be decisive as patriots about rescuing our country, our cities, and our country. And for that to happen, we've got to be involved in politics. We've got to be involved in lobbying people to get out there and go and vote and dilute that vote. The only power that we have today is our vote. Again, I'm not saying vote Action SA. I'm saying just vote for anyone else, just not the ANC, so that you can dilute that and deal with this demon that we've got, that is an evil spirit amongst us, so to speak, which is never going to change. But I'll pause there and let's take a couple more questions.
Thank you. Kia, you are up. This is where I will hand it over to you just to drive terms of the order of speakers. Yeah, let's open it up for questions then.
Okay, thanks, Nkuli. It's gonna be Pico, and then it was supposed to be Lolo, but she's gone. So it's gonna be Pico, and then it's gonna be Let's Fix SA, and then Elmo, and then after Elmo it's Tabo, and then it's gonna be Tepo. So Pico first.
Thanks, co-host. Greetings, Kunzi, and the host, and Sabona Nkuli. Just two things for me. The first one is a comment. The second one is a question. The first comment that I want to make is the appreciation of the 2021 local government elections, which Action SA has pulled through. I think they contested about 5 municipalities, if I'm not mistaken, but it managed to pull through over 500,000 votes, which had led us to be around number 6 in the whole country. The whole country has about 257 municipalities, but we only, the Action SA only contested those. So it was through the help of Gauteng and KZN. Those are the two. So I just want to acknowledge that in your province, Nkuli, that you have worked very hard there. I'm commenting on the basis that your statement to say you are encouraging votes. That's the only message I preach to people who are here. I even said you must have a deliberate attempt yourself, if you want to unseat this government, to campaign for a cause. That's the first comment. Then the second question would be on the preempt that Action SA Nkuli is being labeled as DA light, and I would love to weigh in there. For myself, I've never been a member of the DA. I've never even voted DA before, but I found traction to Action SA, and I was listening even to your history. How do you preempt and respond to those people always weigh in and said you are DA light? Thanks very much, co-host. I will listen.
Kia, do I respond to each question individually, or do we wait for all questions to be asked?
I think we'll take 2 people at a time. So Pico's question was how you feel about being labeled DA light. So now we'll bring in Let's Fix SA and hear her question, and then you can answer their questions.
Thank you very much, Kia. Thanks to all the hosts and co-hosts. And thank you, Nkuli, for taking us into your confidence tonight. So I have one comment and maybe 1 or 2 questions. First of all, I want to acknowledge and appreciate what you as the coalition government have attempted to do, in the city of Joburg. Personally, I'm a resident of city of Ekurhuleni, but I work for the Turquoise Bank and I frequent, downtown, because that's where my bread and butter is manufactured, there by Bank City. I witnessed the work that yourselves, and the coalition government cohort did in the relatively short space of time before you were ousted. Thank you. None of your efforts have gone unnoticed, and this is from myself, and I'm sure each and every patriot that is or may not be on the space. Now to my first question. You speak of us being decisive. You speak of decisiveness. You speak of us going out there to lobby, to get people to vote in the next 12 months or so. I have a 17-year-old daughter. I have a 20-year-old nephew. They are products of me, I would like to believe. Very, very engaged, very observant, very aware. What I'm still battling with is how do I bring them along on this journey? Or rather, how is Action SA trying to bring them along on the journey? They are the voters of next year. My daughter will be a first-time voter next year. My nephew has never voted, and I would like for him to vote next year. What or what can we do? How do we gain their confidence? How do we speak to them in the language that they understand? I'm gonna leave that question there because I need help. Personally, I need help. She's my child, but there are 20 others, of her age, in her school, in her class. So if I could have insights and strategies of how to communicate politics at her level, it will help not just me probably, but 20 other parents. I think I'm gonna leave it there out of respect for time. My next question, I hope someone else among the speakers will ask, but it ties back to patriotism in our schools. How can South Africa teach patriotism to these kids in the schools? Should we be teaching patriotism? If yes, how, when, and so forth and so forth and so forth. Thank you very much, Gia, and thank you everyone once again. That's all from me.
Thank you, Les Felix SA. So maybe let me just start with Pico's question. I think if you consider the base of Action SA, it's made up of a number of people that have left the DA. But not only that, right? So we've attracted voters or supporters from the DA, the ANC, to a certain extent EFF, and so on. I myself came from the ANC. I didn't come from the DA. It is a narrative that is being pushed, and it's a racial narrative that is being pushed. Once you are in the ANC EFF frame, it's a very myopic space. All they preach and what they're good at doing is to attach DA to racism. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, doesn't matter. But they preach that. They preach this revolution type of thinking, right? It's unfortunate that is the case. We are not DA light. We are not friends with the DA. We are not partners with the DA, but we are coalition partners for a common purpose. Now, we were faced with two evils, right? The DA has got the base, it's got the numbers. The ANC has got the numbers. Who is the lesser evil that you're going to get into bed with? And for us, it was the DA, simply because of at least a lesser history of or narrative around corruption. Remember, we challenging corruption as public enemy number one. ANC is synonymous with corruption, and we've got to remove the ANC. So we had to find partners to walk the journey with. But we are not friends, and it's important that we are not friends. It's important that coalition partners are not friends, right? So that we can hold each other accountable. We are opposition partners, partners that have come into play as opposition parties. And in that way, we are able to then hold each other accountable. At least there's a common thread that says we need good governance. Now, you may argue and say, yeah, but in Swane, there's 10 billion rand and this and that and the other. We've dealt with it. We've dealt with the municipal manager and the mayor in Swane on those bases. So we hold each other accountable. We made it a point that we're the ones that pushed hard on Randall Williams to leave as mayor, because we realized that they were not delivering, and it was a risk to us. So we could therefore act on it. So in coalitions, you are going to find that we have to have a partner. There is no option. There are just not enough numbers for us to stand up on our own. unless we really campaign hard and we come back in 2024 and we have built a solid base. So for now, we will work with whoever it is that at least espouses some of our values. Now, DA Light is just a political rhetoric that these guys push, but they know themselves that there's nothing about DA Light. Yes, Kevin Mashar was in the DA. Yes, before Bongani came, he was in the DA. Yes, Funzi was in the DA. Yes, a number of our leaders were in the DA. Michael Beaumont was in the DA, and so on. Okay, but that does not mean that we are DA Light, and I think we need to go on a campaign to disassociate ourselves as a party from this DA narrative and establish our own identity based on our own values. And I think that is ongoing currently. If you've seen the spat that has been taking place between our leaders, Michael Beaumont, John Steenhuisen, and so on, it tells you that we are still friends. So this whole thing of DA Light is something that needs to be demystified. Right now it's a question of saying who can we get to bed with to make sure that we can at least unseat the ANC and deliver on our services. To move on to the question from Let's Fix SA. So thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate it. It's really encouraging to know that the work that we have been doing is being recognized. Now, coming to the point around how do you manage the young voters, your 17-year-old daughter and your 20-year-old nephew, is how well we get established to communicate to the youth in a channel that they understand. I did raise this within the party. These guys are on TikTok, right? They are on YouTube more than they are on Twitter and Facebook, for example. So social media strategy has got to transform. And I did raise this thing to say we need to improve our engagement in that part. The other part that we're doing, we're getting into gamification, targeting the current matriculants and the young people. They understand it in their own context. And when we talk gamification, is that we engage them in an interactive fashion, teaching them what it means to vote. Now, this is a function that the IEC is meant to do. Voter education is the IEC's function. However, the IEC is ANC, and the IEC is hell-bent on keeping the status quo as it is. I mean, if you consider what happened to us in the 2021 local government elections when we campaigned on the logo, was because the IEC just didn't want to support us. So it took to Cllr deployment. So they're failing in their responsibility as a Chapter 9 institution. So we need to accelerate our drive for education, and that's what we are working on. We've established something called the Youth Advisory Council, EAC, and these structures are now out there in universities. We are winning SRCs left, right, and center. Ahead of SASCO and the Youth Command, the EFF, and so on. So we've started with the universities, but I think we need to drill a bit down into the younger generation. I think as families, we need to set aside time where we educate our kids, deliberate time, where we sit and have conversations to say, this is your future, why it is important for you to vote. It is unfortunate that voter apathy is as a result of lack of confidence in politics and politicians. But it is incumbent upon us as parents to sit them down and educate them and give them access to these platforms. So we are going to be making platforms available between now and 2024 that educate the young people. Certainly we do believe, we've got a median age of 27.9 in South Africa. So our majority is young people. And therefore, how we communicate with them is going to become very, very important. So here we need to just hold hands together and say, as parents, we set deliberate time. I sit with my kids and we talk about politics. And they understand politics. I guess because I'm in politics, it becomes easier, as a dinner table conversation. But I think we've got to normalize doing that. We've got to normalize getting them to understand that all you've got to do, and hold them by the hand. I remember in the Fureng award that we were contesting in Soweto last year, sometime around about winter last year, we went into the house and we were doing door to door to collect people to come and vote. And the mother said, you know, my kids are in there, they don't want to vote. We went into the house, we fetched those kids, we took them to go and vote. And she was so happy. So I think there has to be that level of activism that takes place, but at least that activism starts around the dinner table amongst us as parents. I'll pause.
Thank you. Before you take the next round of speakers, Gia, I'll just ask the speakers who've already asked their questions just to drop down to listeners. And if you want to rebut, you can always request. We've got a number of requests coming through. Just need to free up some space for new speakers as well. But yeah, if once your question has been answered, if you want maybe to ask a follow-up question, you can just use the raise hand emoji, and then we will give you an opportunity just maybe to ask a follow-up question. But yeah, just if you've already posed your question, please just drop down to listener. Thank you. Over to you, Kia.
Thanks, Nkuli. It's going to be Elmo, and then after Elmo, it's Tabo. So Elmo, over to you.
Evening, Kia, Nkunzi, PSAF Live without guest speaker Nkuli. Once again, congratulations for the patriotic work, Nkuli, you've done, you and fellow councillors David Tembe amongst ones you've done for the city of Joburg residents, leading off where the founder of Action SA, Herman Mashaba, left off in 2018 when he was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg in 2016. We thank you for that. You brought a lot of hope to South Africans, as well as you've elaborated in one of our stories. Our mothers, our fathers, and siblings served a lot of South Africans during their service in South Africa, and it's unfair that, you know, upon retirement, they get displaced with the kleptocracy that is systematic, depriving them of high quality service in government. So with my question, I just want to say a comment to Ukia as well as Nkuli, to say the issue that patriots, and maybe they'll come up, those patriots, to say the issue that they raise regarding Action SA, to say it's the light, and it's also to respond to Pico, is the issue of the donor funding that happened before 1st November 2021, to say there were links that Action SA, the granddaughter or daughter of Nico Oppenheimer, donated about 3 million rands. It was something to that effect. So I'm hoping that those patriots will just come clean and pose that question to Nkuli. But my question is regarding the illegal foreigner issue. As we know, you were the Economic Development MEC. You've posted a lot on Twitter to say you cannot repeat on the errors.
Okay. No, carry on, Elmo.
Yes, you cannot report on previous errors in 2016 to say you first have to get the municipalities' acts, which were sitting, dusting of gathering dust instead of being put in motion and passed in municipality. So I'd like to know, even though health was not your portfolio, it was the Patriotic Alliance's MEC who Ashley Salts. Because you'll remember that case, ongoing case, I think it started with Qedani Mahlangu regarding Rahima Musa Hospital, illegal foreigners flouting the hospital. MEC Souls went there and found pregnant women lying on the floor. And recently, after Mr. Jones, the then chairperson of Gauteng, South African Human Rights Commission, it's now revealed that it was actually illegal foreigners that were there. So I'd like to know, because we were working in the city of Joburg's city clinics under the ANC regime. Head count as a Juvel was like 13 to 15,000, and 75 to 80% of those people were illegal foreigners. So what has been your experience when it comes to SALGA in imposing the illegal immigration laws? As you said, that it passed under the economic development when you clean the streets. I was also there in Park Station, Divida Street. We did a lot of activism with Mama SA for Put South Africa First, who's also Action SA. We did a lot of work there with Operation Tutula, other NPOs there. So I'd like to know what has been your experience and what you've been able to reveal regarding the non-implementation of illegal immigration laws, specifically dealing with local municipality, because it's under the SALGA umbrella, which is very controversial because SALGA didn't exist before 1996 under this democratic government of the ANC. That's my question. I'll end there.
Yeah, before we take the next speaker, can you please respect the space, please? We will give each and everyone on the speaker's podium an opportunity to speak. Please remain, put your mics on mute when there's a speaker speaking on the floor, and the host or co-host will recognize you and you'll get an opportunity. Please, let's do things in an orderly fashion and in an orderly manner. Thanks. I don't know if Nkuli will want to answer that one, or Kia, are you taking the next? Are you taking the next speaker?
I think Nkuli should answer that one first, and then we'll take Thabo after. So Nkuli, if you can just answer Elmo's question, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So Elmo, with regards to donor funding, so we need to understand that political parties are funded. It's a global phenomenon. And generally the people that fund are people that have got a vested interest. Either they've got business investments in the city or the province or the country, or they're just simply patriotic because they don't like what they see happen. We can't turn down funding that comes. You may ask a question and say, what are the strings attached to that? Unfortunately, I don't know. I cannot answer that because I'm not part of those donor conversations. Yes, I'm involved in fundraising at a patriotic level, at a local level. I do raise funding for Action SA, but in a very, very minute scale. So I don't have an answer as to the decision for us to take money from the Oppenheimers and so on. But what you will notice is that these parties have got common funders across the board with a vested interest in making sure that they bring up the dissenting voice. Now, parties in parliament today get funding for campaigning, right? Okay, so in parliament, the ANC, the EFF, the DA, and everybody else do get a particular allocation from Treasury for funding. We don't, because we are, growing organically. The only time we'd ever get funding is after 2024, once we are firmly entrenched in national government, which we will be. So it's hard for us to not accept any funding, because at some point you've got to make sure that you oil the wheels. You make sure that the people we can campaign and you can get stuff done right. So I think it's important to understand that the color of money in this particular game is not something that you can have a freedom to say no unless you know that you're being compromised. Where we are right now, I don't think we're being compromised. I think it's big business that are coming on board saying we'll support you. And we'll continue taking that money because we've got to spend money. And now I've been involved in fundraising in Action SA, and it's a very laborious process. When you raise funding, it goes straight into the party's bank account, and then you claim against it. Where you spend it, then you claim against it, so that there's proper accounting and governance. If we are going to be in government, we've got to be able to, and we're saying we're going to put governance systems in place. We've got to start within our own party. I've got a thick file of where I've collected 5,000 rands from this one person, 2,000 rands from that person, but straight into the party bank account, and then I can go and claim against it. And this is what we are doing to try and demonstrate that we can account for every cent that comes to the party. And that money goes into buying gazebos, speakers, T-shirts, transportation, food for launches and so on, because it's part of the mobilization. To come to the part of illegal foreigners on health, no, we have not engaged with SALGA. And why we have not engaged? In fact, at some point, we had a discussion amongst the coalition partners to stop funding SALGA because SALGA is ANC. That's what it is, right? So we are funding a vehicle that is destabilizing us, and it does not bring any value whatsoever. So if you ask me what SALGA has done for us, zero, absolutely zero. Even more so with us coming in as a multi-party government, we saw our resources being constrained and not getting any support to that extent from SALGA, so to speak. When we talk about illegal foreigners, again, it's a massive problem. It is a massive problem. Let's not shy away from the fact that this whole thing happened under the 28 years of ANC rule. The fact that in our hospitals, we have got undocumented migrants utilizing our services. They wake up early, by the way. They wake up at 2 a.m. to go and queue. So by the time our people get to the hospitals, they're full. They get 10 back because these guys wake up very early to go and queue and take our services without paying for services. Again, it talks to the will of the current government today to implement our bylaws and laws that are passed in Parliament. And not all ANC councillors or parliamentarians are guilty of this. No, absolutely not. I mean, in the city of Johannesburg, I was working with a particular councillor, Cllr Nkuli, is an ANC councillor. You know, we could disagree on policy and so on, but we could agree that we've got to fix this issue around illegal immigration, right? So it is possible that you find councillors, and what I've seen, and I've had a lot of councillors come to me saying, hey, you know what, you guys are doing a good job, and we don't have capacity, go and hit these guys hard. You see that there's conscience, but they've got to follow the party line. So I think what's defeating us today is this whole party line that is led along a particular path. Again, to address the issue of illegal immigration, we really need to go back to the drawing board with the Department of Home Affairs and the security cluster, and make sure that we clean that space up. We rid it of corruption, we rid of the culture and make sure that it just goes away. I mean, if you think about it today, simple thing like I'm a traffic cop, you get stopped by traffic officers. It is common. It's like almost second nature for us to say, I'm putting a license, 200 rand. That culture has to stop. We've got to stop it because it's just become endemic. It's like second nature to us. And this is what needs to stop. So we are not going to eradicate this thing in its entirety. We'll be dreaming if we think we'll eradicate corruption in its entirety. But at least we need to make an effort, even us as citizens, that says, I'm not going to go and pay for a service by bribing somebody. People must do the jobs that they are supposed to do. So if people in the healthcare sector don't do their jobs, we've got to be able to deal with them decisively. I'll pause there.
Thank you, Nkuli. If you can maybe just give us a brief description of what SALGA is and what its function is, because I think for most of us, actually the first time we've heard of that name or organization. So maybe just like a brief description of SALGA and its functions, just hanyane fela.
SALGA is the local government association of municipalities. So what it seeks to do is to regulate the functions of municipalities. So it is a particular body that we donate into, right? So the metros and the municipalities put money towards SALGA, and Cllr seeks to find a common operating model for all municipalities across the board. So it's really just a consolidation body that will provide training, that will look at policy implementation that is common across the board, that seeks to streamline and align the goals and objectives and the strategies of the various municipalities, and lawmaking at that level. In theory, it is a very good thing to do, because then it provides for a uniform service delivery across the board. But in practice, it remains another ANC Cllr deployment organization. Their role in terms of getting funding from the municipalities, from our coffers. Bear in mind that when you look at the city of Johannesburg, for example, we've got a budget of 77 billion rand. Of that 77 billion rand, about 8 billion is intercompany transfers, so it's funny money, and only about 2 billion comes from USDG grants from National Treasury that looks at infrastructure projects, and then only 66 billion comes from rates and services, so property rates, electricity, water, and so on. So we've got a finite base, right? We don't get money from national government, that is from Treasury, that allows us to run major programs. So we've got to take money from what we have and sponsor institutes like Cllr for them to do regulation and commonality across all the municipalities, and come up with a framework that is common, such that we are able to run municipalities in a streamlined fashion. So in theory, that is what they're supposed to do. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Nkuli. Okay, it's gonna be Thabo, and then after Thabo, it's Tepo.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll try to keep mine short. My question would be about what steps will Action SA take in order to navigate the issues created by our constitution? For example, in regards to education, where our constitution says everyone has a right to education, and they ruled that this means legal and illegal immigrants can get education. And that's why in Gauteng right now we have about 250,000 undocumented people attending our schools, while we struggle to find schooling for South Africans. So what practical steps will Action SA take? Also, with regards to property laws, when you try to remove someone who's hijacked the building, it's very difficult because of our constitution's laws. As you have seen with PRASA and the Central Line in Cape Town, when they tried to remove people who put checks on a railway line, the Constitutional Court said PRASA must find accommodation for those people. So what will Action SA's plan be, play-by-play plan be, to navigate where our constitution is creating the problem? Thank you.
Thabo, look.
Thank you, Thabo.
Okay, can I respond?
Yeah, you can answer. It's fine.
Thabo, your question talks to our policy position, and we haven't been to our policy conference. We're only going to our policy conference at the latter part of this year. But I'll give you my view, personal view as Nkuli. So I won't give you an Action SA view, because it's not a policy position, so to speak, but what it is that I'll be lobbying for. We are operating on a 30-year-old constitution that was built on a utopia state. It was a great idea, sucker for all that live in it, and this and that and the other. Mandela's vision was great, but what it is lacking in the present day is dealing with the dynamics of today. So we can't be operating on a 30-year-old constitution. We need a constitutional overview and a revision. We have to. Okay. One of which is the issue around the Immigration Act 13 of 2002. It's got to be overhauled. We've got a massive illegal immigration crisis that is now being exploited because of what our constitution says. Okay, so Mandela had a great idea, but in today's terms, we need to review that. So I would envisage that the first thing that we do when we get to government in 2024 is to go on a nationwide consultation on our constitution and what needs to change. We've got to tighten our borders. We've got to tighten our laws. We've got to tighten the justice system. We've got to deal with things like crime in a different way. We've got to look at economic policy in a different way and the support of the establishment of SMMEs, for example, and how we support those small businesses. So a lot needs to change in our constitution. Right now, it is touted as the best constitution in the world because it is utopia. But being the best constitution in the world does not necessarily serve us well, right? You've got unscrupulous characters that will come and abuse it. That's why today you've got the likes of Rutendo and so on who tweet and post from South Africa when Zimbabwe is burning, when they're supposed to be in their own home country sorting out their own problems, but they're busy criticizing our own government sitting from here. That's why you find this entitlement of foreigners that just come and live here and decide that they will insult our president. Yes, we may not like Cyril Ramaphosa, but who the hell is that idiot that went and insulted our president and only to find that he's an illegal foreigner? It's a slap in the face. It's like a big middle finger. So those things need to change. We've got to tighten it. We've got to make sure that when you are here legally, and you obey our laws. And we've got to make sure that we deal with crime decisively. We've got to make sure that we deal with issues like education decisively. So I think there's going to be a need for a massive overhaul of our constitution and really, really tighten it up. Home Affairs is going to be a Homeland Security agency. The only reason why Home Affairs is not a security agency today is because the unions are objecting to it simply because they know that they cannot strike the minute that Home Affairs becomes a security agency. But it has to be. We cannot be dictated to by trade unions in that regard, right? We've got to change that and make sure that it is a security state, because this is where some of our biggest problems are emerging from. So to answer your question in short, there's definitely, in my view, Nkuli Mbundu's view, not necessarily Action SA's policy view, at least not yet, is that we need a massive constitutional overhaul, and that requires that we go on a consultative drive across the board to all the constituencies at a branch level to say, what changes do you want to see happen? So if I were a minister tomorrow, for example, pick a portfolio, trade industry or whatever, I would, in my capacity, make sure that I go across each and every single ward to get a view of what needs to change for that particular portfolio, and then incorporate those changes and then push for a constitutional overhaul, because things are not sustainable the way they are today. Thanks.
Thank you, Nkuli. Okay, it's gonna be Tepo, then after Tepo is going to be Stembiso. Okay, thank you. Tepo, you are next, then after is Stembiso. Tepo, can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can hear you.
hear you.
Okay, so Tepo, are you there? Okay, well, Tepo is still trying to find himself. Stembiso, you can be next, and then it's gonna be Patrick after you.
All right, maybe take the next speaker. I don't know what's happened, but it's an issue with the speaker.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay.
Oh, Nkuli, I wanted to ask you, since there's a huge problem with illegal foreigners and criminality they come with. So what are we gonna do about the Nigerian guys who have a lot of money, since they're contributing to our GDP and things like that? And also, gosh, what did I want to ask? Yeah, and also how do we spark the economic growth crisis we are in, within the next 5 years of governance, of national governance? Okay, I'm done.
Sorry, I didn't get the name.
It's Tembiso.
Tembiso.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true that, and I won't point it at Nigerians only, I'll point it at anybody else that comes into the country, that they contribute to our GDP. Remember, our GDP, the gross domestic product, is derived from treasury, as well as the taxes that the various industries contribute towards treasury and individuals. The challenge with undocumented foreigners is that they'll come and sell goods, but they do not pay tax to the fiscus. So it is black market money. Yes, you could say maybe they employ people or they provide services, but that money leaves the country. That money does not find itself into our treasury. So the challenge with illegal immigration and businesses operating in that space that are not registered with SARS. Remember what Mashaba has already said, to say every business that operates has got to be registered with revenue services so that we can collect the due taxes. So right now we're missing out on a lot of taxes. Yes, they are active in our economy, but they are not contributing to our economy, to be quite honest, right? At least in a large part of them. So we've got to tighten our systems where each and every business, and touching on to your next point about the economic growth, is that we've got to be able to map out each and every business that operates and has a license, and we can do bylaw enforcement to make sure that that particular business is paying towards tax. The fact that we collect about 1.2 trillion rands of this is, we could do more. We could easily double that if we really traced all the money that comes into the country. So the informal economy in itself gives a platform for illegality where goods are traded. You got illegal goods that get traded, but that money doesn't see itself into the fiscus. It leaves the country. So we've got to tighten up on that, on business permits, and making sure that we map out each and every business that is in the country, and we can enforce the collection. So we need to beef up the SAPS and the security cluster when we come into power. In terms of the economic crisis, so the focus that we have right now says the country will grow at somewhere, at best case, at about 2% by 2024. Worst case, 0.5 of a percentage. Median case, about 1.2%. We are emerging from a recession, and a recession that's also coupled with the COVID pandemic. So we are in a depressed economy. And for that to change, we have got to stimulate the small and medium-sized business sector. We've got to provide funding for small businesses indiscriminately for them to be able to trade, buy and sell goods, and make goods available closer to the consumers. And the focus is going to be around stimulating that. So we need to pass a bill in Parliament that does not discriminate against SMMEs. If you heard me earlier when I spoke about the issue around the credit bureaus, for example, that are limiting our small businesses from getting access to funding, we've got to scrap that. That has got to change. Yes, you've got to have regulations of some sort that ensures that there's governance around the money that is being made available. But you've got to loosen up and make it easier. You've got to be able to walk up to a shop, right, your nearest shop, right, and apply for a loan and get a loan within 5 minutes because they know you and they know where you live, right? And they know they can collect that money. But we've also got to understand that there's a high failure rate of SMMEs, that when you do this thing, there is going to be a risk that you're going to lose money. So we're going to transform our economy by stimulating SMMEs and bringing a lot more younger people and smaller businesses onto the mainstream of the economy by just making it easy for them to do business with government and amongst themselves. I'll pause.
Thank you, Nkuli. Tepo, are you there? No? Okay, it's going to be Patrick, then after Patrick, it's going to be Patriot RSA. Patrick, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. I would like to ask Councillor Mbundu if the Action SA has any perspective on affirmative action. I've never heard Action SA discuss anything with regards to affirmative action. I've heard them say that they are a party that is based on non-racialism. So if Action SA were to be in charge of the country, how would they approach affirmative action? Would they keep it or remove it? And I understand they haven't had their policy conference yet, but hopefully he can just give us some guidance on that issue. Thank you.
Patrick, look, I am a product of affirmative action. So when I was hired into corporate in 1998, somebody went out there and said, look, we need young black people that have got potential. And I remember I was part of a program by IBM at the time, and I was doing software development, and I had accepted a job at Investec to go and do development. And then somebody came and said, no, look, we want to recruit you into Cisco Systems because they were looking to transform the entity. So I got in as part of affirmative action. You could say I was a classic case of affirmative action. So I believe that if implemented correctly, affirmative action can work. There is no doubt that we need equity. There is no doubt that the economy today is not in the hands of the majority. There is a need for transformation in the space. The problem we have is that how affirmative action was implemented by the ANC government in particular was just to enrich the few who were supporting the movement. It was not generalized and indiscriminate. I would support affirmative action because we've got to bring equity. So if we look at the pay scales, and this is my personal view, not an Action SA view, you got white men at the top, and then you got white women, generally speaking, and then you got black men, and then you got black women. Our black women are the lowest paid, irrespective of the skill sets that they have. So in that, it tells you, when you look at the management ranks in corporates, very few black women are in that space. And yet we constitute at least 80% of the population. So there is an anomaly there. And therefore you need to provide some level of equity, but you've got to provide it without disenfranchising others. You can't, if you've got a black woman and a white man applying for the same job, you're going to give preference to the black woman, provided that there is a skill set to be provided, right? But you don't do it simply because you just want to put your people into space. So the current government really muddied this entire thing. That was a great idea around what affirmative action has to be. I think it's going to continue. We are nowhere near the employment figures and business figures that are representative of our economy. So it is my view, it's a personal view, Nkuli. I believe we do need to bring up young black people, black women in particular, onto the mainstream economy. And it's something that I would advocate for personally, to say, let's push it, but let's do it right. Let's do it indiscriminately. It mustn't be that Nyawazi, you supported Action SA, or therefore I'm going to put you there. No, be indiscriminate. Make sure that you bring everybody across the board. and not to be selective about it. So if implemented correctly, I mean, BE and affirmative action are great policies. It's just the implementation that has failed because of nepotism that we have experienced. But I believe there is hope, and it's something that I would certainly be pushing for. Thanks.
Thank you, Nkuli. It's going to be Patriot RSA, and then after that, it's going to be Pinda B. Patriot, take the mic.
Thank you, Kia. Thanks, Nkuli, for that. I must say I've been following you for a little bit now, and I've been a really big fan of the work that you've been doing. Just a comment and a couple of questions. Comment would be, when Action SA does come into power in 2024, we would definitely, I'd say, push for you guys to definitely be in the terms of the Ministry of Police, Justice, and Home Affairs. I feel like that as a standard should be there for you guys, because you guys have ultimately focused on that. And then the questions I have are regarding the professionalization of the public service. How do we ensure that we attract the best skills to our government? Because when you're looking at it, when you want to be part of an organization just to work, not even necessarily be a party, but like you want to be associated with a place that's honest and stuff like that. And our current reputation is that government is corrupt, and professional people don't want to be associated with that due to the fact that there is so many issues with that. How do we change that culture? And then my second question stands on when coming to power and the approach to SOEs. Do we support full privatization of the SOEs? In my personal opinion, I don't necessarily support full privatization, but I do support bringing in competition. And by bringing in competition, you force each other to behave in a way that's business sensible. In that way, you can always drive down the prices lower for a person, in not letting one person monopolize an entire industry and then have a number of people supply that industry, so that consumers have a choice, or people like us voters have a choice of who to use at the end of the day. Thanks. That's my questions.
Thanks, Patriot RSA, and thank you so much for your support. Maybe you might want to include trade and industry into your portfolios, because it's a core part of service delivery. You spoke about police, justice, and DHA, and maybe trade and industry. Let's talk about professionalization of the public service. So I'm a prime example. I left corporate from a decent salary. Now I'm very transparent, right? So you leave corporate earning 3 million rands to come and join public sector and to earn 1 million rand. So there's an anomaly in that space, right? So that is going to be reviewed. Reason why people steal is because they don't get paid enough. MMCs in particular, and I'll just speak of my example, only get paid 1 million rand. Now, 1 million might be a lot for somebody or very little for another. It depends on where we come from. But we have got to adjust salaries in order to attract the right talent, just like corporate does. We've got to make sure that you've got the right price to get the right person. So we'll advocate for a transformation in the Municipal Systems Act, the Municipal System Structures Act as well, to make sure that you incentivize people to come into private sector, into the public sector, and get paid a decent salary. I'm a victim of that. I mean, I've lived with 25% of my salary being in the space and subsidizing it. So I know exactly what it feels, and I know why it's difficult, and I know why people steal, because this is exactly what they're facing. However, when you look at the administration element, we've got some of the highest paid officials, CEOs of our entities get paid somewhere in between 3.5 million rands, for example. That's a fairly decent salary. I was looking at the salary scales of agencies. I think the Central Energy Fund has got the highest salary of 5.4 million rand for the CEO. And then they listed all these entities that starts from 2 million to sort of 5 million sort of range. So there is good money in the public service for the administration. It is just poor money for the politicians. And that's why the politicians steal. That's why the politicians are rogue. That's why the politicians do what they do. But the minute you start to change that and you start to attract people to come into politics with the right salary scale, we've got a better chance of changing that. Now, the government is not an employment agency, but what we see right now is government being a reward system for people that supported the particular party. So you'll find people who just get paid, but who are not necessarily skilled or experienced enough to compete in the private sector. Now, coming to privatization, look, the writing's on the wall. SAA, Eskom, Dinel, you name them, right? Government running these has failed dismally. And yet you look at corporate companies, MTN, Vodacom, Standard Bank, they're doing well, exceptionally well, because they're privatized. How do you find a balance between the two where you do not capitalize a system such that it'll exploit the people because the prices will be too high, but you can hold them accountable? Is when you look at the policies that relate to companies being incorporated with an element of a social responsibility and ensuring that those who are responsible for providing basic services understand, and I think we are beginning to get to that point in the property sector. There's something called inclusionary units. So when you look at the property development and the densification, 30% of densification projects are looking at inclusionary. So when you build a property or you develop a property, 30% of that is going to be left for people that earn or that can pay 2,000 rands a month or less. So it becomes a rule that's cast in stone. So when we privatize, we're going to privatize with a conscience, not outright privatization where you are now going to marginalize our people, but you're going to be able to include a clause in the approval for companies that talks to social justice and that talks to how can I put it? That talks to shared value. So we've got to adopt what we call the shared value principle, understanding that for us as a community to be sustainable, you've got to understand that you've got the poor people who are living on the other side. So parts of your income and your profits has got to take care of those people. So that way you balance it, but you professionalize it on the other side to make sure that there's competitiveness, that there's performance management. Right now, we struggle with performance management in a space like government because people are entrenched. People are entitled to their jobs. So you can't even performance manage in government. The unions are going to jump on your neck. But how do you eradicate that and put in place a competitive structure, but with a reservation for social justice? Thanks. I hope I answered you.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Nkuli, because I also want to touch on the whole creating employment thing, because one minute you have Cyril telling us the government is not responsible for creating employment. And then the next minute he's telling us we will create 10 million jobs, just to say. So who exactly is responsible for creating employment? Is it the government or is it the private sector?
So let's unpack that. So creation of employment essentially talks to making an enabling environment for investment to take place. The city of Johannesburg employs about 35,000, 38,000 people to provide a service. Government is not an employment agency. Government is not there to hire. Government is there to deliver services. But government is there to create an enabling environment for investment. So to create an investment-friendly environment, meaning we've got to make it easy for people to come and invest in our cities. Rates, services, electricity, water, queries. If somebody has got a problem with their billing, can they get a 1 hour turnaround, for example? That's all they want. Businesses are saying, we've got the money, we want to invest. So when you look at the segregation that's taking place right now, we have got a massive segregation issue where businesses and people are leaving to the Western Cape. Why? Because systems function. All they want is to be able to say, if I have got a problem with my water and I've got a burst pipe, how long will I wait on a call? Will there be somebody on the other side of the line that will pick up the call, dispatch, it gets fixed in an hour? That's all they're looking for. So that's creating an enabling environment. So creating an enabling environment is actually very, very, very simple. I dealt with SAPO, SA Property Owners Association, and they've got about 173 billion rand entity. And their issues were like just basic responsiveness. I dealt with Leroy Merlin, who has got an outlet in Fourways and one in Greenstone, and yet they are paying 13,000 rand per square meter in Greenstone versus 6,000 rand per square meter in their rates in Fourways. And they're saying we can't invest because there's uncertainty, and we've been battling with this thing and there's no response. Our role is to just make it easy. Let's just make it easy. We are not going to invest as government because we are using ratepayers' money to provide services. But we are going to create an environment that you as a business person can come in and invest and employ people. So we must create an investment-friendly space. So I need to be very clear on this, that government is not an employment agency. We don't want people to be looking for jobs. We want people to be looking for business opportunities. For that to happen, we need to make sure that we make it very easy. Contact center as a government. You pick up the phone today, 375 5555 in city of Johannesburg. You're lucky if you'll get through to anybody. You tweet, you're lucky if you can get through. So we need a responsive government. And for that to happen, it doesn't take money. It's just really will to just make things happen. So government has got to make it easy for private sector to come in. And then we can start to talk about FDI. So today, our biggest partner, FDI partner, is the European Union. Okay, they are the biggest investor in the country. So I met with them a couple of times. So when you look at the EU, and they're saying, look, we want to bring businesses into South Africa, but we want stability, and we want responsiveness, we want services to work, and for us to be able to address that, we've got to have a functioning public service that is accountable, that is KPI based, that a call center manager is paid on the response rate that they provide, and they're punished on their response rate that they provide, right? So we've got to be able to do performance management at that level. So I think my view is that government is going to create jobs. It is going to create an enabling environment for private sector to create jobs.
Thank you, Nkuli. It's going to be Pinda. Then after Pinda, it's going to be Ernest. Pinda, the mic is yours. Pinda, are you there?
Pinda futa as well.
Oh, Pinda B. Hello, Pinda. Okay, well, we're gonna skip Pinda for now, and then we're gonna go to Ernest. Ernest, the mic is yours.
Greetings, patriotic South Africans. My name is Ernest from Waterkloof, and I would like to ask Nkuli one thing. But before I ask, I would just like to comment that between the years 2015 and 2017, I used to work in Joburg, but now I am based in Pretoria. And I saw the kind of work that Herman Mashaba did while he was the Joburg mayor. And I was hoping that Action SA was going to do something similar. Hence why I voted for them in 2021. But unfortunately, the DA did what it did. So yeah, that's that on the matter. Right. Question number one. Nkuli, do you think that the DA, do you think that the DA collapses coalitions on purpose to prove to South Africans that coalitions with smaller parties don't work? Number two, what do you think of how the DA voted for the Tshwane speaker? For example, I think the councillor's name is Kulufelo from Action SA. She was supposed to be speaker, but the DA spoiled all 69 of their votes. Do you think that was deliberate, or what are your thoughts on that? Thank you very much.
Yeah, Ernest, again, I'm going to give you my personal view, right? So the political answer to whether the DA collapsed the coalition goes back to the logic that was given to us when we offered two MMC portfolios, one being transport, one being economic development, from Action SA, and the DA rejected the economic development portfolio at R1 billion budget capex, whereas transport at a R5 billion capex. And their logic was, no, these guys are corrupt, they want to steal all the money. But the question was, but why do you give them a R5 billion portfolio and reject a R1 billion portfolio? So that is suspect for me as to, there's no logic to that. Why would you do that? So you'd rather just give away the entire 77 billion rand purse to these people and be opposition instead of giving them economic development, which we were willing to give away. So for me, it doesn't make sense. So now we've given away everything else. So for me, it says something is suspect. And my view is that the DA, we were outshining the DA, and because we eat into their base, they could not afford to have us in government. So they had to really collapse us at all costs. I'll tell you why I say this. Their local caucus, and the caucus is essentially the councillors of DA in the metro, were in agreement to get into a partnership with the PA. Initially, even with the EFF. The EFF only wanted oversight roles, not executive roles. So there's two parts, right? There's the legislature and there's the executive. The executive is the MMCs, the portfolios and so on, where the budget is controlled. And then you get the oversight that looks at the work the MMCs do. So when the negotiation took place, Helen Zille sent John Steenhuisen to speak to Mashaba in February last year to say, can you speak to the EFF to support us and vote us? And Hemen went and spoke to the EFF, and the EFF said, okay, give us 4 Section 79 chairs. Now, those are not budget-bearing chairs. They agreed. When he brought the deal, Helen Zille made an about it and said no. And Mashaba was livid. I was with him in his house at that particular day, livid, to say, but why do these guys send me to go and negotiate and then they make an about turn? And yet these guys, all they want is just oversight roles. We could have had a stable government as we speak right now, whether we like the EFF or not. And then you go ahead and you give away the entire 77 billion rand without any sound logic, no matter how much they try and intellectualize it. So my view, personal view, Nkuli view, was that they did not want us to remain in government, and therefore they gave it away. There is no other logic for that. How the DA voted for the council speaker in Tshwane, there's two sides to answer it. So when you look at the IEC rules, the IEC rules stipulate what can or cannot go into the voting block on the ballot paper. We are accustomed to an X. But what the IEC looks at is that, is this definitive voting for this particular party, meaning you can put anything, you can put a number. IEC says that you can put a number. So the DA strategy was that, let us, in order to manage our people, let's get everybody to put numbers so that we can see who has voted. I think that was a great idea. However, because you could identify councillors by the numbers, it then took away the principle of a secret ballot, and that's why the IEC went against it. I do believe that there is common cause and common purpose for us to rescue the Tswana situation. Hence, tomorrow there's a council meeting to elect a new speaker. All of us got rid of all the rogue councillors. I do believe that the DA wanted to elect an Action SA speaker because we're in agreement that we'll elect a DA mayor. So in Tswane's instance, I think it was lessons learned to say somehow we need to find each other and try and work together. So we'll see tomorrow. I hope I wish I could give you an answer, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. But the expectation is that tomorrow we will elect, we'll vote out the current speaker, and we'll get absolute votes of the whole 214, but 108, I think, of votes are needed. So that'll determine whether or not the DA is sincere. There's reason to be circumspect, but we also believe that with what has transpired, that some sanity has prevailed. So I'm sorry, I cannot give you a direct answer to say whether or not they supported an Action SA councillor, but what they did was supposedly okay. In our view, we did symbols. We put symbols in, and we gave symbols to our councillors, and they gave numbers. The numbers didn't pass, and that's really what happened. So I suppose I'm hoping that it is just lessons learned that we can transform that and change it. So let's keep an eye out for tomorrow and see what happens. Thanks.
Thank you, Nkuli. Pinda, can you hear me?
Greetings, everyone.
Hi.
Ngisathanda ukubonga lethuba leli engilitholile ukuthi ngikwazi ukuphawula nami. Kia, I thought that you were going to tell me to speak or before Upra next time angcheka. But nevertheless, what I like to say is to Upra Nkuli and everyone else on Mamela is for me, I see it makes sense for people to come out in numbers and support the Action SA in terms of for 2024, as we are facing 2024 elections. I believe with the people, they need to really consider in supporting Action SA. With that being said, looking at what they are trying to bring to the people, they are trying to bring a new culture whereby we need to get rid of the culture of bribing, because it starts with the people. If we don't get rid of that culture of bribing, it means we appreciate what the NC is keep on doing to the people. And also when it comes to education, I think Action SA needs to look into the matter of the unions. They need to get rid of the unions, because the unions, the purpose of the unions, it was to serve the goodness of the people. It seems like the people who are running these unions, they don't understand that the whole purpose of the unions to be there, it was against the private sectors, because some of the private sectors were being unjust to the people. So the unions were established to protect the people. But now it seems like these unions are there to go against the public sector, which is being provided by the government. For example, look at the public hospitals, look at the schools. You'll find teachers, they don't want to go teach, because of why they are dependent, or they trust that the unions will come and speak on their behalf. Look at what happened in these hospitals. Doctors, nurses who wanted to save people's life, they were stopped to go and work, people of the unions, because they knew that the unions will be on their side to protect them. Therefore, Nkuli, you need to look into these matters of either you getting rid of these unions, because they are not there to serve the goodness of the people, but they are there to harm the people. And also when it comes to educational system, also it needs to look into it. How do we introduce a new way of teaching our children? Because it seems like the system which is there, we cannot always pointing to apartheid system. Yes, we can see that it is apartheid system, but till when? For how long are we going to point fingers at the apartheid system if we have people who are learned, people like yourself, Nkuli, and the likes, who are learned, who can volunteer their time, go to school, become public speakers or go to schools, motivate or have that extra time that you dedicate to these learners. Like you mentioned something to this effect of the YouTube. The YouTube is being used as a channel as an instrument to convey education, proper education, because that is what it is lacking, more especially in the public schools. We don't have proper teachings, or we don't have people who are dedicated enough to teach our children, which being the future of South Africa. So if we don't look into the future of these people, that means we are setting ourselves for disaster. Also, when we're looking at another key factor that will affect South Africa, because you can ask people who travel a lot or people who meet other investors from other countries, they will tell you that they love South Africa, not because of the country, the trees and everything, no, because of its people. Therefore, we need to, Action SA, if it gets into power by 2024, it needs to look at really all your campaign. It needs to be more based on safety and security, and getting rid of these unions, because these unions, they do no good to people. And also safety, security, the economy of the country, it depends on the safety and the security. For me, ANC, it needs to, all of these people who are ANC members, they need to go and retire, or we need to create an old age home for them so that they can go and sit there and play games together. People, and in South Africa, if you can look at it, is the majority of the people who are there in SA, they are youth. So these people, they don't consider the youth, they don't think about the youth, they don't engage with the youth, they only engage with themselves. Hence, they don't want to retire. Hence, they put policies that at the age of 60, a person can retire, but themselves, they don't want to retire. So it's a system which is failing its people over and over again. So Action SA, it needs to look at these things, at these systems which were placed there to oppress umntana or an African child. Therefore, as in Action SA, Nkuli and the likes and your team, you need to look into the matter of safety and security, so that we can protect the economy of the country. Also, the educational department, the education sector, whereby you'll find these people who are affiliated with the unions. I think these people, they need to be dealt with right, because there's no any progress they bring, because they depend or they know that their unions will speak on their behalf, they will come and do so forth and everything. And like you said, also, we need to make sure as South Africans, we need to get rid of this culture of bribery. Get rid of this culture of bribery. And lastly, Nkuli, if you can look into it, most of the people who didn't vote, you'll find good these people are the people of academic people. So they know that voting for ANC is waste of time. Voting for DA because they're using the tag of racism for EDA. Now people, they have doubts whether should I cast my vote for EDA. And when you're looking at other parties, EFF, and so forth, it makes no sense for these people to vote for EFF. It makes no sense for them to vote for ANC. It makes no sense for them to vote for EDA. Therefore, there's Actions SA, which is propagating, or it is advocating for South Africans first and others after. And this is what is happening in the whole entire world. You'll find also the Gulf countries, they advocate for their people first before they can advocate for foreigners. Why us, if we want to do the same, they say we're coming with xenophobia? This is unfair for South Africans. So therefore, Nkuli, with Action SA, Pambili, continue with the work, the good work that will make sure that our children, the generation to come, will enjoy the fruits of South Africa, or shall I say Wakanda. So they will enjoy the fruits of South Africa. Therefore, Nkuli, correct me if I'm wrong, and the rest, if
Okay,
I say
I'll need
let's
to
get
that
rid
my
of
brother.
the unions, because I think they are against the public, the government, because the government is there to serve, but it's not there to render, or they are not there to open work job for people, but they are there to make sure that they feel.
Okay, I don't like muting speakers, but I think we got the gist of your questions. maybe we'll hand over to Nkuli. I did say that we will limit you guys for time.
Pardon me, it
So
seems like I've taken long. But Nkuli, much appreciated for this initiative. I think also this can work as a platform of educating people when it comes to political disciplines, when it comes to other disciplines that people need to be educated with. Much appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Pinda, thank you, Chairman. You show a lot of passion, and this is what we need, right? I know we're limited on time, but I appreciate the level of passion you have and the comments that you've made. In very short, issue trade unions were very clear that unions were formed back in the days of apartheid to protect the oppressed workers against oppressive employers. But the system today has been abused, so that has to change. Isatu, for example, is one such culprit. So when we come into play, we have to review the role of unions. Unions must look after the workers' rights and not be politicized. The fact that you've got unions that are in a tripartite alliance, the ANC, is wrong in itself because they are in partnership with government, right? Awokosatu and Saftu and all these guys, they should not be aligned with political parties. They should be independent. So we need to look into a law that separates the alignment of trade unions and political parties, because it just doesn't work for us. So I fully agree with you, and I really appreciate your comments, and I'm sure that we will be in a position where we can implement those changes when we come into play. It's something that we are very clear about. The issue around trade unions has to be relooked and reworked, because it's just personal gain. Those people are people that are making millions at the expense of the poor. We can't afford to have that happen. So we will definitely look into that. So it's something that I will take with me into the policy conference as we go towards the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Pinda. Thank you, Nkuli. It's going to be Zandisile, and then after Zandisile, it's going to be Oni. Zandisile, you up?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. Evening to everybody. Evening, Nkuli. Mine is a very short and quick one. In a political environment where organizations like the EFF and the ANC are trying to take us down the path of politics along racial lines, I know that we've talked about this in a number of platforms in Action SA, the difference between multiracialism and non-racialism. I just want to get your personal position on the path that you think Action SA should take, because in my position, in my opinion, multiracialism is recognizing that we are a diverse country of different races, whereas non-racialism is to say we don't see color, which would be dishonest or disingenuous on our part. And I suppose maybe give a view on, is it really safe for Action SA to actually go down the route or the path of politics along racial lines? What are we going to do as Action SA to try and embrace our diversity and make sure we get the most out of each and every person, out of each and every patriot in South Africa, whether it be black, white, Indian, or colored? Thank you.
Zandi, very, very interesting. It boils down to our understanding of multiracialism and non-racialism. And I do agree with you, Guti. There's no way we can't see color, because we've got to have equity. Racism exists, and we can't brush it off altogether. It is probably one of the biggest challenges. I mean, if you consider the fact that, and some of the discussions that are taking place, the fact that we could get into bed with the DA that was derived from the Democratic Party and with links to the National Party, for example, to a certain extent, that we could get into bed with an enemy that colonized us and we could hate an ANC, for example. It's a debate that we have amongst ourselves, which is how do we regard ourselves? So the issue of non-racialism versus multiracial or multiracial community is pertinent, and I think it's something that we've got to ventilate in the policy conference. Let's look at the end objective. We want a country that does not recognize race, creed, or color, but it also acknowledges the disadvantages of some of those people. For example, the LGBTQI plus community has been disenfranchised, right? Where people want to have a preference of their sexual orientation, but they are repressed. And we are a society that has got to empower people without judgment, not what we see in Kunamanje happening in Uganda, for example, where they're putting in laws against such. So the issue of non-racialism versus multiracialism, I think to a certain extent, it boils down to what our understanding is. But I guess when we get to the policy conference, we're going to be very clear in terms of the definitions of the two, but with a clear view of what the end objective is. The end objective is to make sure that a black woman has an opportunity the same as a white male. And if the two are pitted together, the demographics then take precedence to say, this is what we need to promote. So whether that's multiracialism or non-racialism, I don't know. But again, it's not something that I can comment on in the context of a party, but from a personal perspective. I've got a lot of white friends who are very progressive, who are very supportive, in as much as I've got a lot of black, Indian, colored friends and family who are also supportive. Our vision is for a country that does not empower one based on their skin color. How we get around to that and how we get to do it, we've got to just redress the past. We cannot do it. See, brush our sides. Say, I know, we're non-racial. We move forward. No, you can't. You can't. I mean, if you consider what Germany did, Germany atoned after the Holocaust. They introduced a curriculum in schools that taught little children the atrocities of the Holocaust and why it was bad. But in South Africa, we didn't do that. We didn't teach the atrocities of apartheid. So SA has not atoned as yet. And that's why we've got this racial tension. We've got to get to a space where we bring this into the curriculum in which is what racism actually meant, and therefore get the white people to atone and understand. Now, I'm going to be a bit controversial here. We've got a population of white people of about 8% or thereabout. A large majority can't even speak a single indigenous language. And then you ask yourself and you say, but to what extent are you extending yourself to say, I want to understand? Ama forms or government, ama pills, ama drugs that you get from the pharmacy are written in Afrikaans and English. Why do we give Afrikaans such a platform? That is pure white privilege that we've got to kill. Why must we only have 2 languages when we have 11? Let's agree with the English is our standard language. If it's going to cost us a lot to try and print everything in other languages. But why do we have this other one more important than, why is Afrikaans more important than isiZulu? Isn't Ndebele? It's Xhosa. It's Swati. Why? It's Tswana. It's Venda. It's Venda. It shouldn't be the case. We've got to kill the thing. Road signs are still English and Afrikaans. So there is still that element of white privilege. So when we talk about non-racialism or multiracialism, we need to acknowledge that there is still privilege that we need to deal with. And fortunately, the people that I engage with, who I always say are progressive, they realize that. They just need a platform for us to be able to promote that conversation. So I think let's take that conversation into our policy conference as an item, and I'm noting it down to say, how do we define it in the context of the outcome, more than just the static terms that it represents. I'll pause there. Thanks.
Thank you, Nkuli. Oni, then after Oni, it's King J. Oni, you next.
Okay, thank you, host and co-host, and thank you, Comrade Nkuli. My question, I don't know whether it's a question or it's a submission. It will be a little bit controversial, but I'm going to give me the ear. I'm one of the South Africans that are frustrated at this stage, not knowing what to do. And whatever party is on the table, they are there with the tag of saying, we blame the ANC, we blame the ANC, we blame the ANC. But the truth is the problem is bigger than the ANC, and the problem is bigger than blaming the ANC. Number one, we are sitting with a huge government bill of salaries. Our government is taking a lot of money that is paying salaries to its own employees. And while those employees, a big chunk of them are not performing. And then we are sitting with, I think it's 60-something% of youth unemployment, some of them with graduates and everything. While we have people that are working for the government that are working maybe 30% of the time that they're supposed to be at work, and they are very, very less performing, and they are taking the big chunk of the government's money. So I think that thing is something, now according to me, it's something that should be looked into, or at least get the people to work up to the age of 55 years and change the retirement age to 55, and then so that the government can absorb a chunk of our youth that have universities, graduates, and all those things into the system. Because what we are saying is, I understand the concept that says government does not create jobs, but we are at the stage where there's a lot of money that is circulating inside government, and that money that is circulating to government, the bigger chunk of it is going to salaries, which is not revolutionizing people. The very salaries that are in the system, if you could get, maybe let me just give a thought example, get anybody from the age of 55 to 60 to retire within 2 years, which you will be opening up another 20 or 50,000 jobs, and get the youth into that, and then you still have salaries revolving. You have money that is revolving around people. Whilst those people, they have pensions. So in it, within a year or two, you might have unemployment almost settled, or not even settled, but being in a balanced situation. Okay, number two, which is it's also something that I would like to the party to have an ear on. You are talking about a policy conference. The last time I saw the ANC had a policy conference, it was in Nazareth, and they used to post their photos. And when you looked at their photos, and when you looked at anybody that was there that was dancing, and when you think that those people are responsible for creating policies that will govern the government, I did not see anybody with that mentality to create policies on that. So what I'm urging you as a party is, are you going to open the policy conference to people even that are outside Action SA, so that you know that your policies are talking to the people of South Africa? Even get professionals as much as possible, because what I thought that the policy conference of the ANC would be, it would have 60% of engineers, it would have 20% of lawmakers, it would have 30% of medical, whatever, but it did not have that. It only had the comrades that came from the street, comrades that came from Garankuwa with the berets and all those things, and the boots and everything, and those people were deciding policies that were supposed to be decided by engineers, policies that were supposed to be decided by medical professions, policies that were supposed to be decided by lawmakers, and those kind of things. So are we, or are you as a party, going to be looking at things in that way? Because we cannot continue on stepping the same step that the ANC did just because we want to blame them for being wrong. We blame them for being wrong, but then at the end of the day, we are sitting at a time bomb. The whole country's infrastructure is dilapidated. For this country to come back, there should be huge trillions that are needed. For number one, the whole road infrastructure of the country needs to be redone again. When you look at Joburg, the whole of Joburg needs to be redone again. The buildings are dilapidated. The whole government property stuff are dilapidated there. The very ESCOM that we're talking about is gone. It needs to be rebuilt and everything again. We are talking about billions and trillions. So we want a party that would speak to that to us and say, guys, this is the policy. This is what we are facing. This is what we are going to do to you, so that we can understand. And it should be applicable policies. Like, people should be proud of what we are talking about, not always being saying the ANC is wrong, the ANC is wrong. Thank you, comrade.
Oni, thank you so much. Let me just correct this thing. I'll be fired for accepting being called comrade. But I know your context. So in Action SA, the word comrade is frowned upon by Umashaba because we associate comrade with this whole ANC thing. But nonetheless, I'm with you. So let's talk about government salaries. I fully agree with you that we've got a bloated structure. I read an article in Namhlanje that says that 7 million rand was spent on the last 4 years to keep the lights on in ministers and deputy ministers' homes while we were experiencing load shedding. So believe it or not, we experienced load shedding, but ministers and DPs don't have it in their properties of residence in Tshwane. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's the system just doesn't make sense to me at all. But how do you have public representatives that are supposed to provide services exempt from the pain that we experience? So it's money that goes into these guys, and because they are some kind of demigods. Government salaries is a massive problem because coming from 1994, there was this massive employment structure created for our people, but our people were given opportunities based on allegiance and recognition of their place in the struggle. We need to run a lean government. Our government is going to run like a business, right? Our government cannot afford to become an employment agency. If you consider the amount of people that we hire, look at the cabinet, right? So there used to be 27 ministers. Now they've taken them up to 30, for example. They've increased them. And we are saying we will reduce them. We'll do away with deputy ministers. Who needs deputy ministers? What's your function as deputy minister? We're going to do away with that. We have got to cut the government wage bill to focus on people that can deliver the services. But at the same time, you don't want to thrust people into unemployment. You've got to be able to create an environment that allows them to get opportunities outside. Now, you're talking about the difference between the older generation and the younger generation that we're going to cull at 55. And I'm saying, no, we can't cull at 55. In fact, we need to increase the retirement age from 60 to maybe 70, because the people can work, simply because the first person that's going to be 180 years old is alive now. So those people are going to be productive to build up their pension. But how do we create employment for younger people to come into the system? We've got to put a stop to government employment and create an enabling environment for private sector to hire people and bring people on board onto the system. So I think that's what we're going to look into, and it's something that I'll take into the policy conference. You talk about the policy conference and whether it's going to be open or not. When we started Action SA, it started from something called the People's Dialogue in 2019, and 2.4 million people. We sent out a request. I wasn't part of Action SA then because I joined only the year before. But we sent out a request to everybody else, and 2.4 million people gave us a mandate to start the party. So we've always been a consultative party. And I do agree with you that we've got to have technocrats that come into the conference. And it is not about the party alone or members of the party, but it's going to be members of the public that are technocrats, that are skilled, that are experts, that are qualified, that are experienced, that come in and say, here's what we want to do. So I envision advisory panels that come into play, where we open up and say, look, we want advisory panels in this space, in engineering, in finance, in the various fields of trade, where you bring people that come in, and ordinary South Africans. You don't have to be a member of HNSA, but you can come and bring the skills. So I take note of it, and I just put it down for me here to say something that we've got to propose is that we've got to open it up, because it's the only way that we can actually get a wider reach, so that it does not become like another ANC cadre system. I mean, otherwise, if we do that, then we're failing ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Nkuli. King J, the mic is yours.
Good evening, Patriots. Good evening, Mr. Nkuli. Patriots, we all know that illegal immigration is a serious problem in the country. And we all can agree that this problem cannot wait for 2024. All people who are putting South Africans first, we need to be immediately proactive in the fight against this monster. I think Action SA has not been proactive in fighting illegal immigration. I've got 3 questions to Mr. Nkuli. The first question is that currently the truck drivers of South Africa, ATDF, is currently in court fighting the Zimbabwean exemption permits. We all know what the Zimbabwean exemption permits are. These are the permits which have enabled 5 million Zimbabweans to live illegally in this country. So now, my question is, has Action SA ever contemplated to become party to a fight against the Zimbabwean exemption permits? My second question is the same as the first one. Has Action SA contemplated making a constitutional challenge to this problem of illegal immigration, in the sense that they would petition the Constitutional Court so that they can make a case that illegal immigration is collapsing the functioning of the state, and therefore there should be a state of emergency declared on illegal immigration, and which state of emergency can culminate in mass deportation of illegal immigrants. That's my second question. My third question is that I want to know what is the position of Action SA on outsourcing, because we can see that the tenders are collapsing service delivery at municipalities. Is it the posture of Action SA to have public works dispensing service delivery at municipalities, whereby public works will be capacitated, engineers, electricians will be full-time employed, so that service delivery is immediate? This will be the same position as it was during apartheid. My last question is that has Action SA taken a posture on the question of the death penalty? Thank you, Mr. Nkuli.
King J, yeah, thank you so much for your questions. So you are saying maybe we have not been proactive on the issue of illegal immigration. I think Oyman Mashaba has been the most vocal advocate for illegality and dealing with illegality around undocumented migrants, to a point where we are very clear that we want people of the world. A thriving economy is built on at the back of migrants, but they must be here legally and they must obey our laws. And when we come into power, we will make sure that you can rest assured with, right, from a policy perspective, that we will deal harshly against or with illegal immigration, because it's what's killing our economy. We know that from businesses. So if you listen, maybe, I don't know whether maybe you were not there. When I listen to your questions, maybe you're not part of the conversation area. That when you go to restaurants or you get a delivery, Uber Eats or Scooter, these are all people that not providing scarce skills, and we need reserved sectors for that. So how are we going to deal with that is reserved sectors for certain parts of our economy. You spoke about ATDF, the truck drivers. It's a massive problem. It also talks to the same thing about us. I mentioned earlier that when the question was asked as to do we take Seri to court or not, and I said to Cllr, no, Seri is a small component. We have got to take Home Affairs to court and big business to court for hiring undocumented foreigners. It's a massive problem. I mean, the amount of truck accidents that are happening, if you look at what happened in Germiston a few weeks ago with that truck driver, an illegal immigrant, not following prescriptions, not following rules, and not knowing, even when they're driving to a bridge, not knowing which, I'm carrying precious cargo here that can explode. And it killed innocent people because of exploitation, because that company was employing people who were not qualified for the job. So we are totally against it. Whether or not we have joined the ZEP campaign challenge, I think I'd like to think we look at it from a broader perspective, so that we are not targeting specific areas. So we're not being seen to be populist or xenophobic. Illegal immigration on the whole, be it Eastern Europeans, be it Bangladeshi, be it Pakistani, be it Indian, be it African, it is wrong. So we are challenging to close our borders, and that's why we want to turn Home Affairs into a homeland security type of a state. So we may not have participated in the ZEP in particular, but we are very vocal against Abu Rutendo and all these people that are advocating for this thing. It's just complete nonsense as far as I'm concerned, that they'll be sitting comfortably living in Sentin and pushing the ZANU-PF agenda and oppressing their own people on the other side. And something that we've got to fight. Maybe we've got to do it via the Concord. I don't know. It's something that's beyond me at this point in time. You asked about outsourcing in public works. You'll know Wutu Mashaba went on an insourcing bid when he came into the city of Johannesburg as a mayor, to insource cleaners and security personnel, because you had cleaners who were getting paid between 4,000 and 7,000 rands a month, and yet we're paying entrepreneurs 14,000 rand a month for that. So we decided to insource. So insourcing is our strategy, to say where we can cut the fat off and we can employ the people, let us do that. So insourcing is a very big part of us. The same thing is going to happen with public works. We need to insource the key skills that we need to hold within the city. So, my simple answer to you, King J, is that someone like you needs to come on board. You need to come on board and be active. Please ping me on the side and say, where can I play a part? Because just like the other speakers that have come on board, and it's an open invitation to say, please ping, let's see how we can become inclusionary in what we are doing, where these ideas, because I will not have answers all the answers for you today, but you are bringing so much value, and let us bring the platform. Just like I've got the platform in Action SA. I don't blindly believe in Action SA. I'm not like a blind follower, right? Like I said earlier, I fight Nomashaba, sometimes to my detriment, but I see a platform. So I'd like to extend that platform for all of us to say, come on board. We need more of us. You're bringing so much value into this thing. In your own constituency, you might think it's small, but it can just, balloon bigger. So I think let's start to have a conversation around how do we take the ideas that you have beyond just commenting into the actual work that we are doing. So that's an open invitation for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nkuli. Before I give to the host, I have a question about what are you going to do about Johannesburg? Let's say you guys win the 2024 elections and Action SA is now the governing party. How do you fix Johannesburg? Because Johannesburg is it's a cesspool. It is filthy. It's horrible. It's just not Johannesburg anymore. So how then do you turn Johannesburg into a world-class city, like they call it now? Like that's the slogan for Johannesburg, is a world-class city, which I think is a lot of nonsense, because let's be honest, it's filthy. It's filth, rubbish everywhere. It's like you can't even move. You can't like do any like. So how would Action SA then fix Johannesburg, basically? Because if you can then fix Johannesburg, then I think maybe there would be a step. So how would Action SA fix Johannesburg?
Yeah, we I grew up in Joburg. So I was born in Soweto. I went to school at Palanto Park High, at Berea. So I'd take a taxi to town and then take a bus to Berea, and then we'd walk back from Berea to town and hang around the Kaini Center and stairs and so on. Take it home. It was safe. Today it's not safe. I mean, I was in Joburg. I was in downtown Hillbrow 3 weeks ago, and I had to take off my watch. I just felt so unsafe. I almost met my nightmare. The first thing we've got to do in Joburg, and that we will do in Joburg, is to triple the volume of law enforcement. That's the first thing. Safety first. Police everywhere. And how is that done? MC Tembe had a strategy. He calls it a block by block approach of 22. I think he calls it 22 system strategy, where you got 22 people per block. So you increase visibility of police to start with. That's the first thing. Secondly, you then go aggressively against the illegal businesses that are taking place in the inner city. Number three, you got potholes upon potholes in the city of Johannesburg, right? You've got to outsource that to private sector for branding rights. Come close a pothole, brand the pothole yours. It's as simple as that. Number four, you've got this the stench and the waste. There's 16,000 bins sitting at City Power, but the problem we face is that businesses subdivide their own spaces. So you get a company that operates in small street, and they subdivide to 5 stands inside, and they also subdivide outside. And then you suddenly have got like 8 businesses, but with one communal bin. So you've got to outlaw that. You've got to close all those businesses. And by the way, they're not local. Close all of those and enforce bylaw in conjunction with SAPS, the Intelligence, Home Affairs, SARS, and have a coordinated approach to dealing with that. So we got to follow, I follow the story of Guardia. how LaGuardia turned around New York from 1931 when he was appointed mayor of New York. It was filth, it was drugs, it was criminality, and so on. And he was able to turn that around and build bridges, build highways, build schools, build Central Park, do a whole lot of work simply because they were determined on and they were decisive on what needs to be done. So you've got to have a strong hand. In Joburg, you need a mayor that is solid, that is not taking nonsense, that will arrest people, that will deport people, that will enforce bylaws day in, day out, working with the systems that we have. So these are some of the things that we would do in support of the municipality. Rather than call us a dictator, it's fine. Paul Kagame has done it in Rwanda. Kigali today is now fast surpassing Johannesburg, ahead of Lagos and Addis Ababa. Why can't we? We need some kind of a benevolent dictator. We need somebody that's going to be strong to run the city of Johannesburg. Right now, the mayor of the city of Johannesburg refers to the ANC regional chairs as Sir. Believe it or not, the person that chairs the Maycoms in Joburg is the regional chair, the ANC. It's not the mayor. The mayor is just a puppet mayor. So you're going to get rid of it. And once you get rid of it, then you start to implement harsh bylaws. It'll be seen as inhumane. It'll be seen as, I know Ubuntu, but who cares about Ubuntu when you can't walk through a Jozi without your wig being snatched, for example? So we've got to bring a police state into the city of Johannesburg to start with, and extending to Etswan, extending to Ekurhuleni, with the drug cartels as a manager, and extending to Sunnyside, Pretoria. We have to have a very harsh approach. And these police officers are prepared to do it. They just need the right political will. They need somebody that's going to come in here and say, here's what is going to happen. It's going to happen today, but with a systematic approach. So I think we need law and order as the first thing to invest. And then we need to do a cleaning up process. But the cleaning up process requires that we work together hand in hand with the communities to say, one Saturday a month, all of us clean up. It is a culture. We look after our space. You cannot go and urinate in a public space. You cannot litter. We fine you. So we democratize the systems. I mean, there are apps today that are available where one of the things that we wanted to introduce was a particular bylaw enforcement app called VIPA that you would download on your phone and you would record infringements and upload. And when we fine those business people for their violations, you get a share of that. So we got to start to democratize and we operate in a platform economy. And the platform economy says we've got to reach out in scale. It's a tech kind of space where we give power to the people to start to report and be incentivized for doing that. So those are some of the things that we need to do. But I think we need a very strong arm of the law in the city of Johannesburg. Today, we don't have it. We've got this MMC for public safety that is an airhead of note, and it just goes on and just runs for no reason and is alienating JMPD and so on. We're going to get rid of that. So I think we need to come back to the basics and make sure that we bring law and order into the city of Johannesburg. I'm going to pause there.
Thank you. And then also in Durban, are you using the same methods to fix Durban, or you go there differently? Because Durban is not what it used to be. So how would you then go about fixing Durban?
Look, I can't speak of KZN. We've got Mwango, who's doing a great job in terms of mobilizing in KZN. We saw what happened in December where our beaches were not ready. We saw what's happened at the promenades where people just can't go and swim in December. But my view is that we do it metro by metro. But we've got to establish a blueprint to start somewhere. And I think Joburg can be a blueprint to start. And that blueprint can extend. We are fortunate enough in Action SA in that we've got a Senate that is comprised of at least the 9 provincial leaders, plus the other leaders of the party. By the way, I'm not part of Senate. I'm not. I don't even know the single position in Action SA. I'm just an ordinary member. But it is by design, and I'm okay with it. But I've got confidence in that once we succeed in doing what we do here, I thought people are able to take a leaf out of it and implement. KZN can do it, Limpopo can do it, and so on and so on and so on. So it's a vision for the country across the board. It's not something that just ends here. It spreads across the country.
Okay, Tsepo, I don't know if Tsepo is here, but host, if you can take over, thank you.
All right, thank you, Kia. Yeah, I had to drop my Nkunzi account and come in on PSAF Live. It seemed like we're losing the space at that time. But anyways, we managed to hold it together. Yeah, just my last question to Nkuli, and then he can just also make his final remarks as well. And then we will look at closing the space. I think it has been a very insightful conversation, and you can go back and revisit this conversation. We will post the links to Spotify and Apple link as well. Is Action SA come 2024? If the people of South Africa trust that we want to put Action SA in government, how ready are you to be to assume that position as Action SA? And just shortly after you've answered that question, you can just give us your final thoughts as well and closing remarks.
Nkuli, thank you so much. So we have got a representation in all provinces, number one. So we've got provincial chairs, we've got structures in place, and the people that we are always accused of not being democratic, as in, why don't you have an elective conference? Why do you appoint? Right now, it's too early to have an elective conference, to be honest, because we could be infiltrated very quickly by people that can get the numbers. So I believe in the leadership that we have. It is ethical leadership. It is credible leadership. It's people that really believe in the future of the country. By the way, it's not easy. It's very difficult. The kind of conversations we have internally are tough, are difficult. Half the time, people want to resign and leave, right? Simply because of the complexity of the organization. But somehow we always stick together. So when you ask a question, are we ready to lead? Look, I've been a leader in corporate, right? So I'm ready to lead. I know. Umashaba has been a leader in business. He's ready to lead. Also, Lidika is ready to lead. Ukwena Mangope wants to bring back what his dad did in Northwest. Michelle Wasserman, Western Cape, is ready to lead. I mean, she exposed this whole sewer thingy into the beaches of Cape Town, for example. We've got a very strong leadership in space, and none of which is tainted. And we are very quick to fire you if you are found to be going against the policy of the party. We are not shy to fire. So we could be accused, but as a growing party, yes, it's bound to happen. Right? We'll fire you if you are just not going to be in support of the Project South Africa. So from a leadership perspective, I think we've got ethical, principled leadership, and we are ready to lead, and we want to lead. And we are not hungry, by the way. So we're not coming in here because it's for a matenda. Absolutely not. We come from diverse backgrounds, saying, look, we've got to fix what we've got to fix. It's more painful for us, to be honest, to be in these roles. I can tell you that for a fact. My colleagues will tell you, some of them are here on this space. When I told them I wanted to leave council, with the aim, I just can't manage, because of what I get paid and what I do. But because I'm not going to steal, I'd rather just go and focus somewhere else and then support the party. So we have got that kind of a culture that we've got as Action SA. We believe in ethical leadership. We believe in delivery. So in partying, what I want to say to patriots is that we need to work together. Put South Africa First is a friend of Action SA. We are planning on a rally, an anti-illegal immigration rally that will take place sometime in June this year. I'd like to invite you guys on board. Let's all go out there. It's for all patriotic South Africans to come on board and say, we want to reclaim our state. We want to reclaim our cities. We want to reclaim our country. It is ours. They could gaslight us all they want, but we are not going to give up. Let us not give up. I know it's tough. I know it's hopeless for a lot of people. We go to sleep tonight and we wake up to the same thing, but I have confidence that there is hope. We can change it. Even when there's no hope, I still do see hope. So I'm imploring all patriots to tie together. It's the only chance that we have together. So let's go out there and do it together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nkuli. Okay, I see Josh has his hand up. I know you asked a question around the death penalty. Please revisit recording. Nkuli did touch on it earlier on. The position there with regards to that question. But I'll give you 30 seconds, Josh, because we have to close now.
No, thank you, Patriot. I was about to reiterate and remind him that I asked that question. Thank you.
Sure. No, it was answered. I don't know if he wants to. I'll give him. If he wants to.
I'll answer that, Nkuli. The death penalty is a non-negotiable. It has got to come back. We've got to bring death penalty. However, remember that a death penalty has a dependency on a number of functions, the judiciary being a big part of it. We've got to fix the judiciary. We've got to fix and do away with the culture of bribery. And you see, when you open up a case, SAPS, you sign something called a page reform. That page reform says if you decide to withdraw from the case, we can hold you personally liable. Now, when you look at cases that are associated with the death penalty, is murder, rape, on the main. And yet you've got a culture of young women who falsely claim rape when there wasn't, where you could find an innocent guy who was not involved in rape but is now incriminated on those bases. And now we've got to send them to the chambers, the death chambers. We can't afford to have that. We need to make sure that we fix our judiciary, that it is crystal clear that we can weed out the criminals from the innocent. So we don't send somebody who's innocent into the death chambers. The worst thing that we could ever do as a government is to send somebody into the death chambers are innocent. So we've got to fix how NPA operates. We've got to fix how the court system operates. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. That's why I said we're at least about 5 years from the death penalty. But at least we can start now to introduce that fear element. Our view is that we must make jail very uninhabitable. You don't want a jail that is like a recreation facility. Hell no. It must be tough. People must know what you're if you're abortion and my life is going to be hard. Let's make jail hard. And once you do that, it becomes a deterrent. And then we can talk about the death penalty. I do believe in a death penalty. I believe that if you take away somebody's life, you've got no right to live. But because our judiciary system, Kunamanje, is not efficient, we are likely to send the wrong people down that path. So we don't want to get to that path. We want to make sure that we can fix that. I'll pause there.
All right, co-host.
Yeah, I know you want to close the space, but I wanted to ask him about his views on parole, because you have, I don't know if you saw recently, there was those 5 guys, like mass murderers, well, serial killers, who have spent 25 plus years in prison, who are now applying for parole. Do you think that, like, murderers, when they say it's a life sentence, it should remain a life sentence? Or do you think that the 25 years to life thing is I don't know, it's adequate? Because these are people who murdered several people, and then they got like 25 to life, and then on top of that they've got 1,000 years, but they're applying for a parole. So what's your view on that?
So interestingly enough, last week I was watching the world's toughest prisons on Netflix, and in Cyprus, there's a lady that runs the prison facility who gets celebrated by prisoners because she runs a rehabilitation facility. She rehabilitates. They dropped from 50% re-offending rate to about 15%. But that's in a functioning system. Right now, we're not in a functioning system. Right now, we don't have the luxury of calling our centers correctional services. They've got to be called prisons. Right now, we've got to be hard, okay? Because crime is out of control. So when you look at parole, right now, we don't have sentences that have got life with no possibility of parole. We need to bring those back. That people should not. Animals are animals. They need to stay there unless they have proven themselves over and over again that they are rehabilitated. So you've got to infuse rehabilitation into correctional services, because you do find people that are victims of circumstance. Crime was the only option that they had, and they committed, non-life-harming crimes, but are in prison. You've got to be able to let those go, because it costs a lot of money to keep them in prison. However, we've got to be very firm on life sentences without parole. Absolutely not. You cannot. I mean, Thabo Bester had 75 years, and he was living large in prison. Prisons are not meant to be like that. Prisons are meant to be. We've got to bring back the chain gang. Chain gang, they go and work. They work for a living. They wake up, they're chained, and they go and work, so that everybody who sees it knows I do not want to be part of that. So when you ask about parole, I'm a bit conflicted in the sense that you get people that can get rehabilitated, but it talks to the maturity of the society that we live in today. But where we are today, we need tough stance on crime. Life without parole, that's it. And we make it very difficult until your last day on earth. That way, people will know the life of crime does not pay. Whether you're doing fraud or murder or rape or whatever, they must know I do not want to be part of that. We've got to instill that fear factor before we get to a space of motivating people. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've come to the end of the space, and we just want to thank Nkuli, Councillor Nkuli Mbundu, for coming through to the space and just having afforded us the opportunity to have this time with him. And we really appreciate it. And it's a space where we come and we tackle these issues, and we have a lot of patriots coming through. And I think it's important for us to have these conversations, because there's a lot that we need to fix in our country. And not only for us, but I think we need to have generation in mind. The generations which are coming. Some of us are parents. We have children, and we want them to grow up in a safe country, but also a country which will present them with the opportunities, and for them to have available opportunities in this country. So that's basically why we do this, and for us. Just to create this platform for the Patriots. We always say that this is your space, this is your platform. Please use it and engage with the guests that we bring. And for us, we'll be able to move forward as a country. Let me give Classic Man. I'll give you 5 seconds to say your goodbyes, Gia. 5 seconds, then we will just shut the space. I think we've dragged it. It was very long, but 5 seconds each, and then let's just close. Classic.
Right, thank you, host. No, you can give the mic to Kia. It's fine, and then we can close it. We have already dragged the space too much. Thank you.
All right, cool. Kia, just say your good nights, and then 5 seconds.
Yeah, I just want to thank Nkuli for coming on the space. I know that you are very busy, so thank you for taking the time out and coming and speaking to us. So thank you for that, and thanks to everyone who was on the space today. Thank you for all your questions, and thank you for your support, and we hope it continues. And good night, guys. I'm tired now, so good night, everyone. Bye, Patriots.
Thank you. We will catch you on the next Patriotic Space. Please be on the lookout. As I've said and as I mentioned, the space will drop on Spotify, I think, early tomorrow morning. And we'll also drop it on Apple Podcast as well. So just be on the lookout. So we'll post those links on the PSAF Live page tomorrow morning. And I think let's keep it going. Let's remain the fight at hand. We know what is wrong in our country, and I think as a collective, there's so much that we can achieve if we pull together. And thank you to everyone who joined in. And that's the wrap for today. We will catch you on the next space. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening further, and a great and productive week ahead. Thanks.